That's how it sounded on WGN Radio. Harry Carey, of course, on the call. Ryne Sandberg, not one but two home runs in the epic, what is known as the Ryne Sandberg game, June 23rd of 1984, as the Cubs, both of them off of Hall of Famer Bruce Sutter, overcame deficits not once but twice to then win in extra innings, in a magical season for the Cubs where they would win their division and go on to the NLCS to lose to the San Diego Padres. Ryne Sandberg yesterday passing away. That announcement from the Chicago Cubs at the age of 65. I realize much has been said about Sandberg since then. Many of you have shared sentiments as well. And I certainly understand that people would tune into a radio show in Indianapolis, Indiana in July during Colts camp on a day when one Colts presumed starter, or at least one battling for position, left the field with injury, on a day when another superstar got into a bit of a scuffle with another superstar on the field, and on a day when one of their players just got a new $100 million deal. It would certainly be a fair question to ask why a talking head doing sports talk radio in Indianapolis would be talking about Ryne Sandberg on a day when all of those things happened. Also on a day when the head coach of the Indiana Fever, Stephanie White, is going to join us. And the question about Caitlin Clark's availability. Fair to ask those questions. I'll begin with this. Colts camp wrapping up just about 30 minutes ago. Jonathan Taylor is set to join us. I think he's going to call in just about 12 minutes from now. He is scheduled to call in. Kylan Talley is filling in today for Eddie Garrison, Eddie Garrison is off to see the Cincinnati Reds taking on the Dodgers. So Kylan filling in capably today. Kylan, you said about 12:15 or so is when we anticipate Jonathan Taylor, correct?
Yep, that's correct. He's finishing up and about to join us.
All right, so here's the thing that happened today. Let me read to you what was just posted on the Expos Twitter from James Boyd, who you hear on this program each and every morning, including this morning when he was in with Jeff Rickard and Kevin Bowen. Jeff Rickard, back from his vacation, was in with them this morning. Colts defensive tackle Grover Stewart just threw running back Jonathan Taylor to the ground after Taylor made a short catch. Obviously, JT took exception and shoved Grove in the chest. Then left guard Quentin Nelson came over and had some words for Grover, too. Second day of pads has been physical. That from James Boyd. And Jonathan Taylor, we'll get his thoughts and reaction on that, kind of gauge his mood in just a couple of minutes. Jalen Jones, who we had on the program yesterday, left the field today with what appeared to be perhaps a hamstring injury. He is involved in that position battle along with Justin Whaley, who we've talked a lot about. Obviously, Juju Brents as well in that position. So it is an area where the Colts have some depth, and it didn't look like this is the kind of injury that could bleed into even the regular season, but you always keep an eye on that. And for a guy in Jalen Jones, who I know was very optimistic about trying to contend for a starting position or be solidly within the rotation of Lou Anarumo's defense, we will see his availability for the remainder of camp today. And then Bernhard Raimann, who owes me 7%. Bernhard Raimann, as you know, came on this program, and when I asked him about the status of entering in with the potential free agency year in front of him, and Bernhard Raimann said, "We are not on the same page, and we have yet to see if the Colts value the position that I play." I'm paraphrasing, but nonetheless, Bernhard Raimann now with a 4-year, $100 million deal at left tackle. That is, I believe, $62 million guaranteed. And for an area where I have been critical, there are a lot of areas where I've been critical of Chris Ballard, but one area where I will give Chris Ballard his flowers here, and I will give him credit. I think at the specialty positions, there have been areas where Chris Ballard has erred, but in the trenches, he has done well because Bortolini at the center position, Bernhard Raimann, who had short arms when he came out of the draft. Somehow, I guess they got long enough to play in the NFL, but that didn't seem to be an issue for Chris Ballard. And Bernhard Raimann was thrown into the fire at left tackle and given the time to grow, and he has, and he looks like he's going to be a pillar piece. So we'll talk more about that over the course of the show. But that is an area where you got to give the Colts credit. It looks like they have found some players here to give them some stability long-term at the offensive line and to shore up that offensive line. But back to Ryne Sandberg. You know, in this market, it is obviously not typical that we would lead with or talk about Major League Baseball. And I know that baseball, you know, America's pastime, and baseball is a sport, certainly from a participation standpoint, that is massive. You know, there is no denying the popularity, the frequency of travel baseball, youth baseball, and that has probably taken over from Little League Baseball. And the one thing about Little League Baseball, and I know that this is me overthinking it perhaps, but I think now, you know, baseball is still the American pastime, but it's almost more so the American pastime from a participation standpoint as opposed to a spectating standpoint. Because young kids now play travel ball and, you know, through the course of the summer, really year-round. And because they are spending so much time on the diamond, they not only are playing more and working on their game more and going to batting cages and et cetera more, but they are focused on their game and focused less on watching the Major League game. And in addition to that, the other thing that, and I think that we're starting to see this, with the passing of Dave Parker, with the passing of Ryne Sandberg, with the induction into the Hall of Fame of, you know, Ichiro, and you are seeing players now, 25 years from now, when Mike Trout or Shohei Ohtani are going into the Hall of Fame, I don't know that you will have as many people that are of the slightly younger age range that are talking about the childhood memories of seeing those players play. And I think there are two things that factor into that. Number one is what I just mentioned, the watching of baseball on Saturday as opposed to the participation. And then the other one being baseball cards. Because if you played Little League Baseball in the 70s, 80s, into the early 90s in this country, your concession stand sold Big League Chew, snow cones, Astro Pops, and a packet of Topps cards. And you got those cards and you opened them and you looked for the All-Star card and you put them in sleeves. And that's how you kind of got to know your favorite players. And Ryne Sandberg was one of America's favorite players. And the thing about him to me that was so fascinating, this is a guy that never played in a World Series. This is a guy that played on a franchise that at the time that he was playing there was still known for being the lovable losers. And he helped them break through that stereotype and that label because of that 84 season that was magical. It was so magical that I can still tell you, I could probably tell you the batting lineup. Bobby Dernier first, Ryne Sandberg second, Keith Moreland third, Leon Durham fourth. Fifth, I think, was Gary Matthews. Sixth, Jody Davis. Seventh, well, Ron Say would have been in there, so Say would have been fifth. So everybody slide everybody down. Jody Davis actually, I think, batted either seventh or eighth. Larry Boa, seventh or eighth, and then Rick Sutcliffe or whoever was pitching ninth. That team, it was a different era because WGN and WTBS or TBS Superstation made the Chicago Cubs and the Atlanta Braves America's teams because of the fact that you didn't have the regional networks. I mean, if you lived in Indianapolis, you got Reds games on probably Channel 4 or one of the different channels here, but you didn't have the specified specialty networks for every single team and every single market, which also to an extent increased the nature of the giant of the baseball star, because Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays, and before them, you know, Joe DiMaggio and Babe Ruth, they were icons because people listened to them on the radio and had to picture in their mind what they were. And then it was so special to finally see them. You know, I was in Liverpool, England just over a week ago, and I saw Strawberry Fields where John Lennon, it's just a park. It's just a park in Liverpool where John Lennon played as a kid. And I saw Penny Lane, which is just a street. It's got a barber shop and a nurse's station and a firehouse. It's like Broad Ripple Avenue. but it's where John Lennon and Paul McCartney both went up and down as kids. And then they wrote songs about it. And when you heard those songs forever, it created this imagery in your mind. And then to actually see it in person was like, wow. Penny Lane is just a street. But it's a street that was, to me, magnified by the vision and the imagery and the dream of what I had always thought of it to be because I had heard about it so much on radio. And baseball was a great extent that, and Ryne Sandberg was part of that Cubs team that was part of, and yes, we're talking 2 or 3 decades since it was a strictly radio sport. But that game that Ryne Sandberg had on June 23rd of 1984, the Cubs, who had been a doormat forever, who were 15 years removed from their collapse in 69 when the Mays and Mets took over the division, and here are the Cubs surging. And are they a pretender or a contender? And they're going up against the Cardinals, their arch rival within the division, and they're doing it on the NBC Game of the Week, which is why Harry Carey was doing it on radio, because WGN Television was not covering it because it was the NBC Game of the Week. Because back then you got a game each week. And you watched that game, and it created heroes, and it created larger-than-life figures because you only saw them once, but you'd heard about them, and you'd seen them on your baseball cards. And Ryne Sandberg was a young player. He was, at that time, either 24 or 25 years old. And in his career, he hit 282 home runs. In his career, 282 home runs. But he was a classic baseball player. His batting stance looked almost identical to the generic batting stance on top of the participation trophy you got for Little League when you were in first grade. His fielding stance was not one of diving after loose balls like an Ozzie Smith or falling backwards over fly balls like a Willie Mays, but steady and stable. And he was a good-looking guy and an American-looking guy. But the thing about Ryne Sandberg and that game that is notable to me is this. And that is the fact that he hit 282 home runs in his career. But in that game, in the first time that he was on really the national stage with America peering in to see this team that they'd heard about going up against the Cardinals and finding out if they were pretenders or contenders, he hit not 1 but 2 home runs. And there are very few players in baseball history and very few moments in baseball history that you think about when you think about Dave Parker's cannon throw from right field, when you think about Willie Mays' basket catch, when you think about Don Larsen's perfect game, when you think about Joe Carter's walk-off home run, when you think about Kirk Gibson's home run, when you think about all of those moments, all of them were in the postseason. There are very few players in baseball history that had signature moments and regular season games named after them. But you talk to anybody that was around in June of 1984 and cognitively watching baseball at that time, they remember the Ryne Sandberg game. And yet he did that game, and he made that game named after him because he did something that was an anomaly for him. He was not a power hitter, but when his team needed it, he hit for power not once but twice with America watching. And there's just something about great players where oftentimes in the most tense moments, players shy away from that spotlight. But then there are spotlight moments where the spotlight itself runs towards certain players. And it's no coincidence that those players find themselves in that moment and then become that moment. And Ryne Sandberg, for so many people, was the personification of class, of dignity, of the love of baseball, and just of the all-American guy that kind of represented all of us in pursuing a dream from Spokane, Washington, North Central High School of Spokane, by the way, and then did it in a classic ballpark for a classic team and did so with class through and through. And I know he is mourned by Cubs fans in Central Indiana, but baseball fans in general. And it is not often that baseball fans, or baseball players, I should say, and get eulogized by fans in a non-baseball city on a show where there was a skirmish at that team's NFL camp. But that's what Ryne Sandberg was. Now, as for Colts camp itself, Kylan lets me know that Jonathan Taylor is calling in now, so let's get right to it. He is in his 6th year as the running back of the Indianapolis Colts. It is an interesting year because it is one that we have not talked a lot about Jonathan Taylor. That's good. He is coming off his 2nd Pro Bowl appearance, and I guess we'll get to the little skirmish here in just a little bit. But let's welcome him in. Jonathan Taylor to the program here on Query & Company. Jonathan, it is a pleasure. How are you?
I'm doing well today. How about yourself?
You know what? I can't complain, but I'm not the one that's out there having to run around in ridiculous heat, right? I mean, like, this is no joke. This is not Wisconsin. I'm sure you're aware of that. But let's get right to this. For you personally, camp has always been kind of an interesting ride because there have been years where, we didn't know if Jonathan Taylor is going to be on the field, and then there have been years, and I understand it. I mean, contractual things, injuries, etc. What is it? What is the mindset for you now, being able to just clean slate, let's go, good to go, and just how you feel both physically and mentally?
It's great to actually be able to come out here and get better, especially with athletes. We're so scheduled and so regimented in our schedule that when you have a timeline, and let's say you had something to take care of in the off season to get healthy, and then at that point in time you're not ready because we know the body is weird and it acts different. So you get a little frustrated because, you put so much work in and yet still you weren't able to be healthy to be on the field. So finally being able to have another camp where you can just come out, focus on your craft, I think it's just that much better in order to build that chemistry with the guys up front, but then also just preparing for the season to have everything in the playbook under your belt and all the little nuances that we might have picked up throughout the offseason, having that locked down heading into the season.
Over the course of your career, you have obviously taken handoffs from myriad of quarterbacks. As a running back, how important is it to have stability at the quarterback position in terms of just the overall, I guess, chemistry, timing, all of it?
Well, number one, especially with ball handling, when you just continuously are getting handoffs from the same quarterback, you kind of know their steps. On outside zone, are they a longer step guy? Are they a shorter step guy? You kind of know when they're reversed. And now, how tight they're going to be because, everybody's different, especially when you have quarterbacks who are taller and, have longer legs than others. So, when you're able to get those repetitive reps from just one quarterback, it's much easier and you get much more comfortable knowing, like, hey, when they call the scheme, okay, hey, I have to really get to my spot because I know the quarterback's going to be there fast. Or, hey, I got a little bit of time. Quarterback may have a little bit shorter legs, so I got a little bit of time to get there.
Are Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, in terms of style or in terms of just overall nuances within them, is this the closest you've seen quarterback 1 to 2 in terms of the starter or backup that you have had in your offense since you've been here?
They are very similar, and I don't think people realize, Daniel was actually really athletic. I don't know if they realize, he ran 21, almost 22 miles an hour before, so really being able to have those similar schemes, because I know in the past we've kind of had two distinct different quarterbacks with different styles. So if, one was up one week, kind of playbook would be different than the other, but they're actually very similar. So I think that's actually gives us an edge, especially, if we have to rely on both of those guys. It doesn't shift the game plan much either. Just like in the past, like I said, two distinct style quarterbacks, you kind of have to switch up kind of what you guys are going to run.
It is true. Now, you mentioned Daniel Jones, 22 miles an hour. That's your speed, right? I mean, are you competitive about this? Because that's Jonathan Taylor's speed, is it not?
That is. That's why I'm like, I don't think people realize how athletic he actually is. I know people probably think he's athletic, but I want them to realize, no, actually, this dude's, pretty freaking athletic. He can roll.
How much have you gotten a chance to, I know you obviously know Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, our guest. How much have you gotten a chance to work with and know away from field Daniel Jones?
I've been able to do a lot, and I just think that it's going to take some time, to continue to build. Like you mentioned, each year it seems like it's been, a different guy back there. So he's another face that I have to not even figure out, just get reps to learn, because every guy has their own talent and every guy is different. So it's just going to continue. We're only in the second week of camp, so we're going to continue to build that relationship. We're going to continue to build those reps together so that when Sunday comes around, whoever's back there, that we're able to hit on all cylinders.
This is the most, and Jonathan Taylor, I've had you on the show before. This to me feels like the most energetic and optimistic Jonathan Taylor I've heard in a while. Am I reading too much into that?
I like to think that I'm always like this, but I'm glad that you feel as though that I'm bringing all the energy to the show, which is amazing. Hopefully the ratings are up big time.
Yeah, we need all the help we can get in that regard, Jonathan. So thank you. Do you want to stick around till 3? We can use you till 3. Do you want to stick around? Why not?
Listen, you might have to talk to Coach Steichen. We got meetings.
Now, I want to know this. I want to know if in one of those meetings you've got to play Kumbaya, because let me read you what James Boyd, who does our morning show, had posted on the X-Post Twitter earlier just a little bit ago. Colts defensive tackle Grover Stewart just threw Jonathan Taylor to the ground after Taylor made a short catch. JT took exception and shoved Grove in the chest. Left guard Quentin Nelson came over and had some words for Grover Stewart as well. Then he says, second day of pads has been physical. All right, your recollection of it.
Definitely Grove got into the moment. Game time. He's flying around. He let me know. He said, listen, man, I thought it was game time. Rightfully so. That's the type of edge that we need on the field. I'm sure you guys have seen the film of Grover bullying guys on the offensive line. So, like you mentioned, second day of pads. He probably got into that mode a little bit too much. But that's what we need. That's the type of edge that we need in order to go where we want to go this year.
Somebody asked me this question, Jonathan Taylor, so I'll ask it to you. I think it's a good one. And that is, if there are moments where someone is lagging, where somebody is just going through the motions as opposed to the intensity that is necessary, who is the player in your locker room on your roster that is the one that just automatically is the leader that will not be afraid to get in a guy's grill and say, you got to be a professional here, let's pick it up? That guy for this roster is who?
Oh, definitely Quentin Nelson is always, especially with the guys on the offensive line. You guys know the trajectory that Quentin Nelson is on, not only on the field, but off of the field as well. And he's a guy who does everything the right way. He's a true pro's pro. And if guys seem to be not holding up to the standard here in the building, he's definitely one to say, listen, that's not the standard. And we're always fully behind Q, because at the end of the day, you want someone who you know day in and day out is giving everything he has to this organization. And that's someone you want to be like. You want to be like Quentin Nelson. You want to be like, on the defensive side, you want to be like a DeForest Buckner. So that's definitely having those two guys as model professionals. That's what a lot of guys are striving to be.
He strikes me, Quentin Nelson, as a guy that doesn't speak a lot. So is he one of those that when he does, you know it means business, or are we just kind of hidden from the real gregarious nature of Quentin Nelson?
No, Quentin definitely won't say a whole lot, but like you mentioned, when he speaks, powerful.
Jonathan Taylor, our guest. All right, let's get to this before we let you get back into meetings, Jonathan. In terms of you personally, where you are right now in terms of just kind of getting the feel again for the speed of the season, and I guess, if you will, what things do you still feel like you need to work on or you need to perfect before we get into week one?
Definitely being efficient. There's never a time where, even if things break down with the blocking scheme up front, can you get back to the line of scrimmage? Can you turn a no gain or a negative gain into a 1-2 yard gain? Because at the end of the day, continuing to move the sticks forward, continuing to be able to move the chains is something that a great running back is able to do. That helps the offense. That helps the offense, especially when you get towards third down. So it's not 3rd and 11, 3rd and 10. Now, at the worst, you may be working with 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 6. So I will say being able to work on that is definitely something that I still want to make sure that I'm pushing for the start of this season. By the way,
November 15th, Wisconsin at Indiana. Kurt Cignetti, are they going to do it again? Is Indiana going to stun Wisconsin here?
No, not at all, not at all. Listen, Wisconsin, well, we had to kind of get our feet underneath us. That's all. That's nice and cool. But now it's time for Wisconsin to get back to Wisconsin football, and I'm really looking forward to those guys taking that next step forward this year.
Jonathan, it is always a pleasure, man. I appreciate the optimism, the energy, the good vibes, the sunshine, all of it. And obviously, we don't need any more heat out at Colts camp. But mind your P's and Q's with those guys that are flying around making plays. But certainly look forward to having you back on the program, and I appreciate the time today. We'll let you get back into your position meetings here.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate you.
All right, Jonathan Taylor joining us on the program. Again, big show lined up for you today. Stephanie White going to join us. Stephen Holder as well as we roll along here on a Tuesday. Query and Company on the Fan. Island Tally, not even realizing, coming off of the comments from Jonathan Taylor, the Badger, that this is the song that is played in Camp Randall Stadium at the University of Wisconsin starting every fourth quarter. They all jump around for... Now, they mute out the one part where he sings inappropriately about violence in this song, but nonetheless, that is the Wisconsin Badger song. I've always thought it'd be cool to go to Camp Randall strictly for that moment of everybody jumping around to start quarter number 4. Oftentimes you see the opposing team even getting involved. You just heard the radio call from Nick Yeoman from the end of the Brickyard 400. And when it comes to the quarterback competition, I thought of I finally, for the first time, thought of, and it was another one of my 3:28 in the morning brain droppings, a racing analogy as it comes and relates to the quarterback competition for the Colts. And I'm going to repeat daily, I'm going to repeat what I have said since the beginning of camp. And that is that if Daniel Jones is the starting quarterback for the Colts in week 1, it probably is going to be far less about Daniel Jones being the starter, not because he won the job, but because he just didn't lose it. Because I think with everything that you look at involved with Anthony Richardson, they need Anthony Richardson to be that guy. Richardson today, and I take this with a huge, I'm warning everybody right now, please make sure you're checking your blood pressure because I'm about to give you a huge grain of salt, okay? And that sodium might be bad for you. But with a grain of salt, I offer to you this from a friend of the station, Jake Arthur. Anthony Richardson has had another excellent day today at camp earlier today. Camp wrapped up just about an hour ago. 9 of 11 during 11 on 11s with touchdowns to Michael Pittman Jr., Mo Alley-Cox, and Josh Downs. I go back to what J.J. Watt said in the form of you just don't know what it is that maybe they're working on, what it may be. I mean, for all you know, it may be that Lou Anarumo was like, you know what? I really want to test out this undrafted free agent corner that probably is not going to make the squad, but I want to see how he fares against, a Michael Pittman Jr. in a slant. And so we're going to put him in there in a nickel spot, whatever. You never know what could lead to those situations, but you'd rather see that than not see that. But I got to thinking about just the Brickyard and then racing in general and the quarterback competition. And I thought about Anthony Richardson and Gardner Minshew, or Matt Ryan and Sam Ehlinger, or Andrew Luck and Jacoby Brissett. And you heard Jonathan Taylor talk about it with the athleticism of Daniel Jones. The wheels of Daniel Jones, the legs of Daniel Jones. And the more that I thought about it, I thought about this. And I could use it in an old school Indy 500 analogy. Maybe to put it in more recent terms, I'll go with, say, like the 24-hour Le Mans. If you've seen the F1 movie with Brad Pitt, it starts out with showing him in an IMSA race where he goes in as a relief driver, okay? When you have drivers that are driving the same race car and you're making a quick change during a pit stop and bringing them in, ideally what you want is drivers that drive a similar car to one another. Because it would make no sense at all to have somebody go out and run 4-hour stint in an endurance race and then have him come in and be replaced by a guy who, if one guy likes the car to be really tight in the corners, one guy likes the car to be, to have like maybe a more freestyle, like some guys like a car that, you kind of feel like you're sliding all over the place because it gives you more freedom to put the car where you need to go, whatever. If one guy prefers one style and setup of the car from an engineering standpoint, it would be foolish to then put another driver in there that likes the car in a completely different format because you don't have time to make the adjustment to it. And it feels like this is the first time in a quarterback competition for the Colts that you have two quarterbacks that drive the same car. And so, stylistically, you are not having to alter a lot whether you're going with Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson. And that could be advantage in the course of a game. For example, if Richardson is your starter and either he gets dinged up and leaves the game or he taps his helmet and leaves the game. Let's hope that never happens again. But either way, if that were to be the case and you have an in-game change or an in-game substitution, a lot of times you see a guy that comes in and he spells for one drive and things are really vanilla because your game plan, the plays that you've scripted, whatever it might be, are designed for quarterback A. Then quarterback B comes in and you're like, well, wait a minute, we got to run a whole different package here. With these two quarterbacks, I think both of them are guys that need to get in rhythm with short intermediary passes. Both of them are guys that can potentially hit like a long ball, a deep pass behind the defense to an Alec Pierce, let's say, or an A.D. Mitchell or whoever it might be. And they have that potential, but what you need before that is them hitting the layups. And both of them are guys that can tuck and run and have good legs. You heard Jonathan Taylor talking about it with Daniel Jones, and we certainly know that's the case with Richardson and his physicality and his speed. So they bring the same tools to the party. They bring the same threat offensively and the same scheme that you need to showcase them. So that's the one positive, I think, is in the fact that whichever guy you go with, if you've got a spell – now, you don't want to do this. There is nothing in the world, I think, that is ever a worse idea than the whole quarterback by committee. Somebody plays 4 plays, comes out, back in. I mean, that never works. It never works. Every coach thinks he can make that change, be that guy. And what do we always say? I mean, we always say the same thing, and that is that if you have 2 quarterbacks, you got none. You don't want to do it over the course of it, of going back and forth and oscillating back and forth. That never works, right? But if you need to go in and you're in a mid-drive and somebody, even if it's an equipment malfunction, somebody's got a shoulder pad to pause, whatever. I just think it helps to have 2 guys that play the same style, that do the same thing. And look, there's nothing greater, and I know I'm going on the way back here, but there was nothing greater than when Ron Meyer decided they were going to run the wishbone. I mean, that's what I'm talking about, where if you have 3 quarterbacks, you got none. So the Colts go out. I can't remember I think it was Chris Chandler was the quarterback, who I thought was a good player. And then Ron Meyer decides, because Jim Irsay and Ron Meyer had been together at SMU and they saw the success of the wishbone, and they went out and they had, that team had Craig James and it had Eric Dickerson. So Jim Irsay goes out, makes the trade for Eric Dickerson. And then one day he and Ron Meyer are sitting around and Ron Meyer says, we should run the wishbone again. All right, let's do it. We got Albert Bentley. We got Eric Dickerson. We got a Bentley and a Rolls in the same backfield. So let's go out and let's get ourselves a wishbone quarterback. So they call Ricky Turner, and Ricky Turner had run the wishbone at Washington State, and he's operating a cement truck in like Spokane, Washington, and he is like when they call the manager in Major League and Lou says, "Can I get back to you? I got a guy on the other line about some white walls." And then he decides to be the manager. Literally, they call Ricky Turner, and he's like, "Let me get back to you. I got to go ahead. I've got a huge thing of cement here I've got to pour at a construction site, and I'll call you back in 20 and see if you want me to fly and be an NFL quarterback." But they brought him, and so then you're going to run the wishbone on some plays. You're going to run almost like a West Coast offense on some plays. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing? So I like the feel of knowing that you got 2 guys doing the same thing. It's advantageous, and to go back to a racing line, the best line I've ever heard from an athlete to me during an interview, I asked one of the most brilliant, in-depth questions of all time to Juan Montoya, and Juan Montoya said, "See, you're doing what too many race car drivers do." I go, "What's that?" And he goes, "Don't overthink it. I get in a car, I go fast. Don't overthink it." I get in the car, I turn left, I go fast, I find a line. Too many guys overthink it. And I think sometimes at the quarterback position, you overthink it. In the Colts case, I don't think this is a year they're going to overthink it. They got two guys that play similar. They got two guys that do a similar style and bring a similar skill set and have similar attributes and similar drawbacks. And one of which is trying to prove that the team that drafted him made the right pick, and the other of which is trying to prove that the team that drafted him high and gave up too early. And Daniel Jones has to look at Anthony Richardson and say, that's the situation I was in New York, and I know what happened there. I saw how that story ended. And he doesn't want to see that story end that way for Anthony Richardson, but Daniel Jones also knows that part of Daniel Jones' redemption tour is perhaps writing that epitaph on the Indianapolis portion of Anthony Richardson's time. And yes, Richardson looked good. And yes, we've been there before. And yes, we promised ourselves we wouldn't read too much into it. Don't overthink it, right? But I'd rather talk about that than talk about the opposite of that. There is one player today, again, grain of salt, admittedly, but get your popcorn because I got more salt for you, because there is another guy that showed out today. There's a guy today that finally arrived. There's a guy today that found the map to Westfield and arrived, and it was like, here we go. And I'll tell you who that is next. So I would like to point out that we have had on this show since camp began the following, okay? Jonathan Taylor earlier, great conversation. Matter of fact, he called in right off the top of the show very shortly thereafter. So in case you missed that, because we just had him for a couple of minutes, but I thought it was really good stuff, may replay that before the end of the program. Don't typically do that, but I think in that case, because it was pretty good, and I thought he had some pretty good insight, not only about the quarterback position, but about leadership in general with the Colts. But we have had on, since the beginning of camp, we had Bernhard Raimann. We've had Cam Bynum, who was great. We had Jalen Jones, and we had Alec Pierce. Okay? Now, Alec Pierce has a blister on his foot, but he is back on the practice field. He was back out there today, but he did miss time yesterday with that blister. Okay? So I don't think you can call that any sort of a show, Jinx. Jalen Jones today did leave the field with what appeared to be a hamstring injury, and we certainly hope that it is nothing more than that for both himself and the depth at that corner position. But it didn't look like it was the kind of thing that would – but you never know. You never know. So I'm not a doctor. It's dangerous for me to say. But, you know, you look at those two and you think, eesh. But then Bernhard Raimann. Listen. It's not my place to come on from 12 to 3 on this radio station and spout out about my influence and power. That's been done before. So, you know, I don't necessarily need to do that, right? People don't want to hear that. But I think Bernhard Raimann, I should get 7%. Typical agent draws 7. You know what? I take that back. I'm not his agent. I'm not his representative. But I helped. So 3.5%, half an agent fee. Not bad, right? Because Bernhard Raimann, and I think he knew exactly what he was doing. Bernhard Raimann came on this show, and a couple of questions in, I said, hey, you know what? You're a free agent. You're in the last year of your contract. You're in a contract negotiation. What's the mindset? Where do things stand? And he said, well, we're not on the same page. I'm paraphrasing. And I think he might have even said, like, we're a ways away or we're a ways off. And when he said that, I thought to myself, well, there are one of two ways to look at that. One is, and we've seen it with Ryan Kelly. We saw it with the Pacers with Miles Turner, where they get to a situation where they then sign for, in Miles Turner's case, I think it was a 2-year extension, which then prohibited them from being able to renegotiate with him until that deal was up to extend him. And obviously we know what happened there. But we have seen times where it's not unprecedented with any team where you see them say, hey, they reached a point where they're not going to do anything now during the season. They will wait until season's end, and then they'll come back to the negotiating table. So when Bernhard Raimann had said, we're not on the same page, my instinctive reaction was, does he mean they're not on the same page in terms of the urgency of getting a deal done, or they're not on the same page in terms of how much he's worth? And so when I pushed him for the follow-up on that, he did not hesitate to say, no, I know my worth. Same page in terms of how much he's for. No, I know my page. And so that kind of grew legs, right? That nationally speaking, it was, Bernhard Raimann and the Colts are way off. And you saw, and I'm sure Chris Ballard, the first thing he does when he gets home at night is looks at social media to determine what he needs to do. But you saw that there was reaction of people like, you cannot do this. Don't be cheap. Don't sell this short. Don't screw this up. You got to re-sign Bernhard Raimann. And lo and behold, what happens within a week of Bernhard Raimann coming on this show? And we now know, 4-year, $100 million, $62 million of which is guaranteed. $62 million of which is guaranteed. Can you imagine that? Kylan, let's figure this out, okay? He's got a guaranteed $62 million over the next 4 years, okay? So let's just say for the sake of argument, that Bernard Ryman just says, you know what? I signed the deal. I'm good. Guaranteed. Now, we're going to take out taxes. What's the tax at that level? What are we looking at? 32% tax, something like that? I'm totally guesstimating. I'm probably way off base. The kids across the hall would know and probably do 3 hours a day talking about the injustice of it. But let me see here. $62 million. I'm just going to go with, let's say I'll say he's giving 35% in tax, okay? So $40.3 million over the next 4 years. So $10 million per year guaranteed after taxes, right? Now, the beauty of that is, can you imagine, assuming that he gets every 2-week direct deposit, can you imagine that, like, you just, every 2 weeks, after taxes, right? Every 2 weeks after taxes, you check your checking account, and you're like, you know what? I screwed this up here. Can you look up what 10 million divided by 26 would be, Kylan? Because that means that after taxes, he's looking at his direct deposit, and it's like, oh, another $385,000. You know what? I realize, guys, that we're supposed to go bowling this weekend and then go to a movie, but if you don't mind, can we wait until Tuesday? Because I don't get paid till Friday. And I want, what do you get? Well, yeah, okay, yep. 12:20 a.m. I checked it on the 2nd, and yeah, I just got my $384,615 direct deposit after tax. Now, does he have a 401k that he pushes into also? Does he put 10% in, and do the Colts match that as well? I mean, good for Bernard Ryman. But the guy so we talked about all of that, right? Then the guy that's showing out now is apparently A.D. Mitchell. So Bernard Ryman got paid, so no jinx on this radio show because we influenced that. I get 3.5%. Jalen Jones, I don't think, hopefully that's not a serious injury. And we have not yet had on A.D. Mitchell, but A.D. Mitchell today apparently caught 7 straight passes from Daniel Jones. And finally, A.D. Mitchell found his way to Westfield this year. You remember Andre Ryne? Andre Ryne, prolific wide receiver, first-round pick, Colts, 1988. Late on the first day to Anderson because he had to stop at the truck stop on I-69 and what's now 96th Street and ask somebody where Anderson is because he was lost. Drove from East Lansing, had to turn around, go back to Anderson, arrived a little late. A.D. Mitchell, we've been awaiting the arrival. And it looks like today, and again, you don't know what's being worked on, but it beats the alternative that A.D. Mitchell today finally arrived 7 for 7. And in other words, 7 balls thrown his way, 7 completed passes, according to people that were out at Colts camp. And that's what you want to see. You want to see A.D. Mitchell because you know Pittman, you know Downs, you know Pierce. They've got to get that 4th receiver, and A.D. Mitchell's the guy they've been counting on for it to be. And at least for one day, it was. But one day camp does not a season make. Three Dog Night among those. Dropkick Murphys among those. We will do so later on in the program. By the way, reminder, August 7th is the fan golf outing. Going to take place at the Legends Golf Club. Your chance to come, hang out, all to benefit Franciscan Health Foundation. We look forward to it. Hope to see you there. There is still the opportunity to sign up for it at 1075thefan.com. Not sure if Kevin Bowen's going to give golf lessons or not, but he's the scratch golfer of the group. I think John's okay. JMV, I think he's a decent golfer. I'm terrible. Mark Dykton, I don't know if Dykton's a golfer or not, but he strikes me as a kind of guy that would struggle because I think he has little hands. He's kind of like Kenny Pickett. Eddie the same way, truthfully. Eddie the same way. Eddie's probably in trouble because he's a baseball player, so he's got a baseball swing. Not good. Let me get you caught up to speed on what's happening in terms of the injury report today out at Colts camp. This from Mike Chappell, friend of the show. Shane Steichen did confirm that Jalen Jones suffered a hamstring injury during practice. Jones did leave the practice field earlier today, shortly after things got underway in Westfield. But along with Jalen Jones, there were other injuries. Juju Brents out with a hamstring. Michael Pittman Jr. did not finish practice because of a groin injury. David Long with a groin injury, Salvin Ahmed with a back injury, and Cam McGrone with a quad injury. But obviously the notables there would be Michael Pittman Jr. with a groin. And then when you look at Jalen Jones and Juju Brents, that's a unique situation because, and again, Justin Whaley, the rookie out of Minnesota, who has really impressed in the way that he has played in this camp, you have to look now at those that he is trying to move in front of or stay in front of, because I think at this point he's taken most of the starter reps of that corner position. But Jalen Jones and Juju Brents on that side are the two guys that are, battling as well. And both of those guys go down. And you would anticipate that's not for long, but you don't know that. The other thing that comes into play with this, and this to me is a little bit of a chicken and egg discussion. I briefly talked about it yesterday, I believe it was. Might have been 2 days ago with Chris Widlick. I mentioned that we were out at camp, and Widlick and I are sitting there watching. I think it was yesterday. And we were talking about the fact that it is, and I get it, the NFL players, the teams are, this was agreed upon by the Players Association. It was agreed upon. The minimization, is that the right word? Is that a word? Minimization? Minimalization? Is that a word, Kylan? Can you look up? Is it minimalization? Or is it's minimalization, right?
I think you're adding in an L, minimization.
Minimization, that's what I first said. Is that right?
Yep.
That didn't sound right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm an Allisonville Elementary School spelling bee runner-up in 1984. I know most words, but we didn't get that far in the alphabet. Minimization. But if you look at the lessening of camp time and practice time, 1 hour practice a day, maybe 90 minutes. And a lot of that is walkthroughs and just, they do drills and they put pads on and they start hitting. But if you go back, and I'm not talking, you don't have to go in the Wayback Machine here. You don't have to go and be the two guys from the Muppets to remember the time when, for example, when they would finally have the first preseason game. What does every player say in preseason games? Every player since the beginning of time. If you go back and you look at the Egyptian pyramids and you try to decipher what hieroglyphics say, what they say is that there were actually games being played between the Cairo Comets and the Egyptian Eels. And they were talking about how they could not wait for the preseason game number one because they just wanted to hit guys from another team. Because in the old days, guys would put pads on, and they were hitting twice a day. Fights are breaking out. Big brawls on the field. There was a scuffle today. Jonathan Taylor, Grover Stewart, Quentin Nelson, there's a scuffle. But those days, and I'm not talking long ago, of a couple of practices in the heat, full pads, guys, collision, all of it. And as I was talking to Whitlick yesterday, I'm like, man, it seems like it's less and less each year. That was agreed upon by the collective bargaining agreement and the NFLPA. I within the CBA. I totally get it. And that leads to the question of, and I don't know this answer, do we see more nagging injuries throughout camp because A, players are getting back to, and look, professional sports, the level of activity, the level of demand on the human body is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. What they're asking their body, even for 1 hour. I mean, what the Colts, we could sit here and poo-poo it all day long about the Colts game. What they do in 1 hour is more than what most of us do in the course of a 2-week period, physically speaking. But are they resting their body in the offseason after 17 weeks of a collision sport? Not a contact, a collision sport. And you hear players that are in prime shape and the most elite athletic shape of their lives say all the time that on Monday morning it takes 5 minutes to get out of bed just to move, just to get your body to move, and then get by Wednesday or Thursday back to where you're feeling right again, only to go back through it all again on a Sunday. And so are you resting your body over the course of the offseason to the point where you are then shocking to the system your muscles, your ligaments, and your body in the training camp? That's a possibility. Or are we seeing injuries like this because in training camp itself, they're not going through enough to shock the body? And therefore, any contact whatsoever is jeopardizing them. Also possible. Or is it possible that we are actually going to see fewer in-season injuries because of the slow ramp-up period taking place right now and the 1 hour practices instead of 2 practices a day in the blazing heat, testing your body, etc.? I don't know that answer. I tend to think that in the regular season we see more injuries because the body is not ready for the shock to the system. But that's probably just because I'm diverting back to what I saw previously and always thought was the norm, and therefore you naturally are like, well, this is nothing compared to the way it used to be. But either way, you know, you have the camp. If you're not out at Colts camp, and it's cool to go out there. I mean, everything about it's cool. I get it. I mean, you had yesterday, I saw Carly Ursay-Gordon and I saw Casey Ursay-Foyt with their kids walking around. I mean, that's cool, right? And, you know, there's a family-like environment to it. You got the touchdown town or whatever they call it right behind the practice field where kids are running around and Blue's out there doing stuff and having fun with kids, and it's cool. And the chance for you to watch the Colts practicing is super cool. But they actually, because I asked about this, what does the day look like after what we see? They go through practice from 10 until like 11:15. Then, or 11:30. Then from 11:30 until like 12:30 or 1 o'clock, it's a combination of post-workout treatment, getting looked at, making sure that, you know, I mean, I'm not making light of it. Alec Pierce had a foot blister, getting that treated. The hamstring of Jalen Jones, getting that looked at, getting it treated, whether it be massages they do, whether it be that really painful thing they do where they scrape the muscle and try to get like lactic acid off of it, all of those things. That treatment and then also getting something to eat takes place until like 1 o'clock. Actually, I think like 1:30. And then by 2 o'clock, it's individual breakdowns of film sessions by room. So the corners go in one room, the quarterbacks go in one room. Yeah, I would assume the offensive unit in general, but they break down into, by 2 or 2:30, sessions, group sessions within the area of whatever they're playing, and then watching film. And that's the way it goes over the course of today. And so, therefore, it is not as physical and taxing as it once was. Totally understand why. I'd probably be the same way. Now, the other thing that we talked about off the top of the show that I want to revisit, and it's a little bit weird on a sports talk radio show in a non-baseball city, to go to talk about Major League Baseball on a day when you have a left tackle getting a $100 million contract, on a day when you have a corner and Jalen Jones getting a hamstring injury, on a day when you have a franchise wide receiver and Michael Pittman Jr. having a groin injury, on a day when Anthony Richardson has his best day throwing the football, on a day when Daniel Jones also has a pretty good day in awakening A.D. Mitchell. So there's a lot going on, a lot to talk about in that regard. But Indianapolis is a little bit different because this is, by and large, a melting pot of baseball fans. It's a melting pot of baseball fans. And you have, I think, the vast majority in this city, probably a rotation of, if I had to guess, and I'm strictly guessing, 30%, if you took Major League Baseball fans in Indianapolis and broke it down, I would say 30% Reds fans. I think at this point I'll go 40% Cubs fans. Then you have probably, I'll say 20% fans of any of the Cardinals, with the Cardinals probably being the larger percentage here. Cardinals, White Sox. I'm not going to say Tigers. I know proximity-wise, but I'll say Cardinals, White Sox. And then 5% that are some sort of other regional team, and 5%, if my math adds up there correctly, or whatever the remaining percentage is, of just big brand fan. A Yankees fan, a Red Sox fan, a Dodgers fan. But that's kind of the breakdown of it. But in this town, the Chicago Cubs, like is the case with a lot of franchises, the Cubs hold a special place for people in Indianapolis, and probably always will. And I remember in 2016 when the Cubs were on the doorstep of the World Series, and I still maintain my sentiment on this, and I think I'm still right. I said that if the Cubs were to win the World Series, Cubs fans need to be careful because it will change the identity of the fan base. Because forever, the Cubs had been the lovable losers. The Cubs had been the franchise that had the Billy Goat curse and the Black Cat curse, although the Black Cat, I think, was the Mets. The Billy Goat curse and, all that goes into the collapse in 69 with the Mays and Mets, all of it. And there were so many things and so many stories and so many legacies about the Cubs never, the Norman Rockwell paintings, they're never going to win a World Series. And so to be a Cubs fan was a badge of honor because it showed that you were a loyal fan because your team was never going to win it, but you still came back every single year. Red Sox were the same way, but the Cubs more than anybody. And that if they were to win it, just be careful because then you just become another fan base that's like kind of obnoxious. And I still maintain that that's the case. It's a different brand of the fan base now because they have won a World Series in their lifetime. And they're having a good year this year, I realize. But the summer of '84 was different. It was different for the Cubs, and it was different for baseball in general. And yes, maybe I romanticize it in my mind now because we do that about childhood, right? And I know that not everybody listening to my voice was a child in 1984. They may not have been around in 1984. They might have been an adult by 1984. But the summer of 84 was a little bit different, especially when it comes to the Cubs for this reason. They were 15 years removed from that summer when they had a sizable lead with a month to go over the New York Mets, and the Mets came roaring back and went on, and the Mason Mets surpassed them and went on to the World Series and won the World Series. And 15 years removed from that. And Harry Carey, who had been the voice of the St. Louis Cardinals and the Chicago White Sox and now was the voice of the Chicago Cubs, and he was the television voice of the Cubs. And he was the television voice on WGN, which was a national network that, and again, for those that weren't around, keep in mind, back then you had in baseball, essentially, you had your favorite team. You got to watch their games on a syndicated channel. In Indianapolis, you got Reds games. Not all of them, but you got a vast majority of them on, say, WTTV4. But you didn't have the regionalized home games where you got to see your local home favorite team all the time. The two teams where you saw them on the regular were the Atlanta Braves and the Chicago Cubs. And the Cubs were different because, especially in 1984 still, all of their games were in the daytime. First night game, 1988, Philadelphia Phillies. First one got rained out, and guess who hit a home run in that game? Ryne Sandberg. Ryne Sandberg hit a home run in the first night game at Wrigley. It just wasn't the first official night game because it got rained out like in the fourth inning or whatever, and they came back and redid it. But in 1984, every game's on in the daytime. And for example, my parents were a young couple, moved to Chicago in the late 60s for my dad's steel job. And my dad was working in the steel areas around Chicago and the Chicagoland area. And so my mom, as a young mother, a stay-at-home mother, had the Cubs on television locally in Chicago and could watch it each and every day as a day game in Chicago. And so cluster truck has arrived. Evan bringing in the cluster truck. What do we got? What do we got here, Evan?
Good. We have got cheese quesadilla for you.
Heck yes.
Classic. Build your own quesadilla, just classic cheese.
Right.
With
the regular, right?
Very much with our house-made salsa verde charred salsa on the
Love
side, and sour cream as well. And then for Kylan, I believe you got the Chipotle cheesesteak.
I did. I'm all about the cheesy cheesesteak. I haven't tried it from Cluster Truck, so I'm excited.
The Chipotle cheesesteak is one of my favorites. House-made Chipotle ranch on it, peppers and onions, nice flank steak.
And when you say house-made, by the way, you don't mean like 2 hours ago, right? You mean everything there is made fresh to order. That's the best thing about Cluster Truck.
Very much, yeah. The Chipotle ranch is prepped, ahead of time, so you can use it as a side. You can order it on items. So that one is prepped ahead of time, Chipotle ranch, but the cheesesteak itself is made to order.
Of course, as always, right? All right, we look forward to it, Evan. Appreciate it. Were you a Cubs fan, by the way?
I am not.
Who's your baseball team?
Not a huge baseball fan.
See, that's it. Indianapolis, not a huge baseball town. That's what I'm talking about, right?
It's hard to buy in, but I do love the Indians. Shout out to the Indians.
Of course. Of course. All right, so you got to follow the Pirates if guys graduate to that level. Evan, appreciate the lunch.
Thank you guys
as always,
much.
clustertruck.com where you can buy that. Okay, so when I'm talking about the Cubs, what I'm saying is this. So my mom, for example, in 1969, stay-at-home mother would watch the Cubs on television every day and became a huge Cubs fan. And for that reason, even though I grew up a Reds fan, the summer of 84, all of a sudden, the lovable loser Cubs find themselves back in the mix again. And I still can recall their batting order because they were on WGN and other teams were not. You got to see them every game. The Cubs and the Braves, those were the two teams. And that 84 team, Bob Denier the leadoff, Ryne Sandberg batted second. Keith Moreland, I believe, batted third. Leon Durham was cleanup. Gary Matthews batted fifth. Batting sixth would have been, I think, Ron Say. Seventh, Jody Davis. Eighth, Larry Boa. And the ninth, the pitcher. And baseball at that time was romanticized because you collected baseball cards, you got to know star players, and you didn't see players on the regular. You heard about them. You saw the baseball cards. You wondered who they were. You knew they were all-stars. You saw them in the all-star game. And back then, you didn't have the travel baseball to the level that you had now, so baseball was still a spectator versus participation sport. And kids played Little League Baseball, of course, and in the concession stand at Little League Baseball, you had Big League Chew, Astro Pops, snow cones, and baseball cards. And you read your baseball cards, and you looked at your baseball cards, and you knew your players. And the Cubs were a team that finally got their opportunity. They got their center stage. They got to play on the National Game of the Week on NBC with Bob Costas on the microphone, and they were playing the Cardinals. And Ryne Sandberg was a 25-year-old guy, and the Cubs were a team that people were trying to find out whether they were a pretender or a contender. And the whole country was watching. And it was different back then because the game of the week, there was just one of them, and everyone tuned in, and everyone was watching it. Everyone was captivated. And Ryne Sandberg in his career hit 282 home runs. 282 home runs. Not huge, not staggering, not a power hitter, but a reliable, everyday, timely hitter, and a guy with a classic batting stance that looked just like the little generic batter on the top of your participation trophy from your first grade Little League team. And he was a prolific second baseman with an extremely high fielding percentage that was as reliable could be, that set records for most consecutive plays without error, and was a timely hitter that was always there for his team. And it's interesting to me that for a guy that was not a home run hitter, in the first night game at Wrigley Field, the first opportunity under the lights, Ryne Sandberg hit a home run. And in the first opportunity on a national stage with the spotlight on the Chicago Cubs in an era where that still mattered, a guy that many people to that point knew about because of their baseball card collection, of a card that they drew at their Little League in Yuma, Arizona, or their Little League in Kearney, Nebraska, or their Little League in Annapolis, Maryland. They knew of Ryne Sandberg, but now they had the chance to watch him. And it was a Major League Baseball game of the day on NBC, which meant that Harry Carey, the television voice of the Cubs, shifted over to the radio side of things on WGN. And Harry Carey was on the radio call on June the 23rd of 1984. And the Chicago Cubs were playing their heated rival St. Louis Cardinals. And Bruce Sutter, the unhittable future Hall of Famer Bruce Sutter, was on the mound to close the game, and the Cubs trailed by 2. And the guy that steps into the batter's box with a runner on is not necessarily a home run hitter. And then this happened.
The pitch. There it goes. Way back. It may be. It could be. It is. Holy cow. The game is tied. The game is tied. Ryne Sandberg did it. Listen to the crowd. Stretch the pitch.
Ryne Sandberg in what would be known as the Ryne Sandberg game. And it is not often that players have a game designated to them in legacy. And very few. If you think about Joe Carter's home run, you think about Kirk Gibson's home run, you think about Bill Mazeroski's home run, you think about Willie Mays' basket catch, you think about Don Larson's perfect game. All those happen in the postseason. But in the regular season, sometimes great moments find the player. And it just so happens that it's only fitting that the great player is the one that had the moment, because a lot of players, when the moment is there, tense up and shy away from it. But oftentimes the moment doesn't shy away and runs towards a great player. And in Ryne Sandberg's case, it was only fitting that he would be the guy that not once but twice would hit those home runs when the spotlight was first on the Cubs and then when the lights were first on Wrigley. And Ryne Sandberg, who passed away yesterday at the age of 65, is absolutely the kind of the All-American guy, a class act, a class player, a Hall of Fame player, and somebody that will be missed and remembered by not only Cubs fans, but baseball fans for a very long time. Stephanie White, just a few, but let's get to Tom real quick because he is a Cubs fan with his own recollection. Hi, Tom.
Yeah, hey, Jake. Thanks for these reminiscences of Rhino. I have a little different perspective in that I was, 26 when this happened. And on that Saturday, I was living in the Chicago area, and I was at a friend's wedding. The game was going on during the wedding, and everybody had their transistors out, listening to their earplugs. And then during the reception, we all sat around a TV that we had and where the reception is being held and watched Sandberg. Now remember, he didn't win the game. He tied it twice.
Correct.
In the 9th and the 10th with 2-run homers. And it was incredible. I want to say two things. One, Jerry West is the logo of the NBA. In my mind, Ryne Sandberg is the logo of Major League Baseball. Him turning the double play, flying over the runner coming in. He was a natural player. The other thing I want to mention that I remember about that weekend, the next day I was at the game and had the fortune of having the best seats I ever had, about 3 rows behind the Cubs dugout. Beautiful day. Rick Sutcliffe pitched his first game as a Cub at home that day and shut out the Cardinals on a one-hitter. I believe it was a one-hitter, 1-0. By the end of that weekend, every Cub fan that I knew that we were bound for the playoffs. It was exciting.
Hey, and Rick Sutcliffe hit a home run in Game 1 in '84. Remember, in the NLCS against the Padres, they won 12 or 13-0 in Game 1. And, Tom, it was a foregone conclusion they were going to the World Series. And then they go up 2-0, and then we know what happened in San Diego, and I've never liked Steve Garvey as a result of it. But and I was a Reds fan, but I fell in love with that Cubs team, right? And I agree totally on the logo. Even though it has long been thought that it's Harmon Killebrew, in all actuality, the logo was a compilation of different players that they used in terms of photos, but it looks just like Ryne Sandberg, no question. And Willie McGee, who is an unheralded, beloved Cardinal player, hit for the cycle that day as well, but upstaged by Ryne Sandberg. Now, one person who is a Cardinal fan at that time, now the head coach of the Fever, Stephanie White, joins us next. Now, I'm not going to lie, and I think this is what Eddie requested for a Buffett song, and I think this is what we had mentioned and what Fever head coach Stephanie White had mentioned as a Jimmy Buffett song when we talked about this last week. But this seems like a serenade, right? Like I feel like the dentist is ready for me. You know, Finn's might have been good. I mean, it's all good, but she joins us now on the guest line, the head coach of the Indiana Fever. Coach, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, except for I feel like I'm in the dentist's office with that song.
Yeah, that probably wasn't the best choice right there.
I think,
but, we couldn't do Cheeseburger in Paradise. We couldn't do Margaritaville.
Finn's is good.
That's the first thing that came to my mind. I don't know why.
Oh, that's all right. I mean, it is Tuesday instead of Monday, but that's okay.
That's all right.
Okay, so let's get to this, and I promise I'm going to wait for the second question before I ask for a health update. So I want to get to simply this, and that is just the way that you guys are playing. I mean, obviously you've got a little bit time here before you go to Phoenix or, hosting Phoenix. That's tomorrow night, by the way, Fever and Phoenix tomorrow night. But you've won, obviously, 2 straight here, and Chicago and Vegas. What have you seen without Caitlin Clark on the floor that so far that you do like, that you think maybe things are rounding into form with obviously a major piece for you?
I like how we're sharing the ball. I think we're averaging like a 70 to 75% assist rate, which is I think what we have to do to be successful. So we're sharing the ball. We're getting lots of different players involved, so production from a lot of different areas, which is important for us, having that balance. And what we're doing defensively, we get different looks without Caitlin on the floor on the defensive end in terms of what our coverages look like. We miss her length, certainly, and our ability to do some of our switches, but we've got some speed and quickness when Ari and Kelsey are out there together. And more than anything, it's continuing to be consistent on that end of the floor. And I think we've grown into that now that we've got bodies and we've been able to have some continuity in terms of who is on the floor.
When you think back to, the WNBA, obviously we see now, and I mean, gosh, I'm watching last night, I'm watching, I think it was New York and Dallas is on, and I'm watching it, and Paige Becker's such a good player, and New York gets out to a big lead, and, the league itself continues to grow, Coach, and I'm curious, as a result of that, do you have to plan against a more diverse style of plays? In other words, do you see teams playing at different styles that you have to prepare for, more so than, say, even when you were a player?
Definitely more than when I was a player, and even more so than when I was a coach in this league the first time around. And used to be you could take, hey, what are their top 3 to 4 plays, really hone in on that, and that would be your scout. Heavy usage plays 3 to 4, and that'd be it. Now teams are running so many different actions. Obviously the players are better than they've ever been. They're as versatile as they've ever been. And so, now you're not just talking about pick and roll defense. You're talking about inverted pick and rolls. You're talking about dribble handoffs. You're talking about re-screens, step-up screens, angled screens, like all the different things. And that's just on-ball screening defense. And the different ways that they play and the different reads that they have, it's much more free-flowing, much more difficult to scout, much more nuance to what teams are running. And so it is much more challenging. And then certain teams have different ways that they look. Dallas certainly looks a lot different than Atlanta. Vegas certainly looks a lot different than New York, and Phoenix looks a lot different. Last 2 teams that we played in Vegas and Chicago.
What about Phoenix jumps out at you now as you get set for this game tomorrow night? Obviously, you're going to see a familiar face in DeWanna Bonner. I guess, is that awkward, by the way?
No, it's not awkward. I mean, look, it's professional sports. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I have a personal relationship with DB, and so for me, I'm happy that she's happy that she's found a place. I think we've both kind of, in terms of the situation, we've been able to move on in a positive way. She's been able to move on in a positive way, so I'm happy for her. Certainly seeing AT. AT is what makes any team that she's on a challenge. Just the way that she plays the game, her IQ, her ability to play the point forward, get other players involved, her defensive tenacity. But you've got that coupled with Satu Sabali, who is, Satu and AT, 2 of the best 4 players, in the game. They make it a challenge. Kalia Copper, and I know she's working back from injury, but I mean, she is as dangerous as ever. try to keep her in front. Certainly Olympians. They've got multiple Olympians on that team, so they create a challenge. Their size will create some challenges for us as well.
When you look at Alyssa Thomas and trying to neutralize that, Stephanie White, our guest, the head coach of the Fever, do you find in a situation like that it's better to defend or neutralize a player by fronting them and simply trying to deny them the ball, or by then getting help side and being on the backside of it to limit once they do get the ball where they can then operate?
Well, AT is going to have the ball in her hands on the perimeter, and so for us, it's about keeping her in front, not over helping, so that she can do what she does best in terms of facilitating. We've got to be really, really disciplined in how we play her. We got to force her to hit tough shots. We got to make sure that we stay really disciplined. It makes her so dynamic is not just her scoring ability, which she's scoring at an all-time high, but it's her facilitating. And she is truly a point guard in a forward's body. Yeah,
I mean, I guess you're right. That's the thing. And that's another thing, Coach, I think that, when you look at a player that is, and you're talking almost a double-double when you factor in the assists, right? So, but the size itself, I don't know that we would have seen a player at that size running that style 20 years ago. To me, it just speaks to the evolution of the game. Am I way romanticizing that?
No, not at all. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's one of those things that the game's changed. It's players have changed. She's used in a unique way. We used her like that in Connecticut as well because that's her skill set. It's what she does. And so, yeah, it makes it challenging, but it does show the growth of the game and the growth of players.
If you look at your schedule, Stephanie White, our guest, I believe you have a game every 2 or 3 days until the 17th of August. So we're looking at, a little under 3 weeks from now, you get a reprieve of nearly an entire, at least, work week off. Is there any thought to just letting Caitlin Clark use that time to then kind of the slow acclimation back in for her as opposed to just throwing her into the mix once she is healthy again?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we'll have to have Caitlin go through practices before we throw her out there into a game again, making sure that we're really taking this slow. Last time she felt good, so she got minimal practice, if any, and then thrown out there into the game. This time we're going to make sure that we get multiple practices. She gets through some, for lack of a better term, kind of benchmarks that we don't see any regression. And so yeah, I mean, it makes it tough because we are playing every other day. We're playing every other day, and then, we're traveling out west. And so every time you travel, there's inflammation that happens on airplanes, rest recovery, time zone changes, all of those things that affect your body as well as your mind.
What's the latest you can tell us with any sort of definitive nature on her status or where things stand or what the timeline would be? Yeah,
there's not really a lot that's definitive. I think the biggest thing is we got to make sure, number one, from a rehab standpoint, that she's strong, that she's comfortable. Then she's got to start a conditioning regimen that will allow her to build endurance, to make sure we don't have any setbacks there. And then we'll start movement patterns, all the lateral movement, all the movement with force, all the contact that she takes. And then after we get through those with no setbacks, we'll get to practice and how it looks like to start to get rhythm, timing, speed, balance, all of that back, and make sure that she feels as close to 100% with that as possible before we throw her back into games.
We were talking about Ryne Sandberg. You were a Cardinals fan growing up, is that right?
I was. Yes, I was.
Now,
big Cardinals fan, big Ozzie Smith fan.
Okay, I want to know how. I guess, where you grew up, and for those that don't know, you grew up obviously, Seeger, Indiana, right? What's that? Like just west of Lafayette, is that right?
It's southwest. It's north of Terre Haute. It's halfway between the University of Illinois and Purdue University in the state of Indiana. So I'm like 1 mile on the state line.
Okay, so for that reason, I guess I'm going to guess it's because of like just the radio signal of the Cardinals back in the day, and maybe like a family relative or something was a Cardinals fan. But I want to know how you became a Cardinal fan.
You said radio signal. How old do you think I am?
No. I said radio signal of an older relative. So in other words, like your grandfather became a Cardinal fan by listening to KMOX and then carried that on.
Okay. Well,
No, listen, I'm old. You're not. I'm old. You're not. I know that.
really where I grew up, it was kind of split down the middle. It's like you were either a Cardinals fan or you were a Cubs fan. And that's kind of how it works. It's like you're either a Purdue fan or you were an Illinois fan. So you're either a Bears fan or a Colts fan. So it's kind of one of those things that at Bulls, Pacers, that you kind of, when I grew up, it was like that. But I used to go to Cardinal games every summer when I was a kid. My grandfather was a huge Cardinals fan. My grandfather was a baseball guy. In fact, he played minor league baseball in the Reds organization. But he was a Cardinal fan growing up, and in turn, we became Cardinal fans. My whole family really is extended family are Cardinal fans.
I mean, Ozzie Smith was obviously prolific, the Wizard, right? I just wanted to,
Yes.
the reason I ask it before we let you go, regardless of whatever team you were a fan of, I just think Ryne Sandberg personified, Coach, like everything that you would want out of a player or a role model for young people during his time, and just wanted to get your thoughts on watching him, even as a rival, so to speak, when you were a kid.
Oh, I loved watching him. Those were those rivalry days, certainly with the Cubs and Cardinals. But I think just as you mentioned, not just how he played the game, but the way he handled himself, his leadership, his consistency. As a young kid, none of those things really, leadership and consistency and all that didn't really matter. I didn't really understand that. But then the older I've gotten, and when you look at the craft, and especially baseball, the number of games that they have, the hours that they're on the field every single day honing their craft, the short off seasons, right, the preseasons, and the way that they have to approach the game mentally as much as physically, and with the consistency and elite mentality that he played, I just think it was really incredible, and such a loss for the sports community, obviously, and just one of the greatest that ever played.
I always thought it'd be cool to play for the Cubs back then because it was all day games and you could still go out to dinner every night. Like,
That's right. No lights.
That's how I think about it, right? I mean,
Mhm.
lights came in 88. Ryne Sandberg hit a home run in the first unofficial game. It got rained out, and then they came back the next night and played against Philadelphia. Tomorrow night, it will be the Fever in action, taking on Phoenix. That is a 7 o'clock start at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Stephanie White, the head coach. And again, Stephanie, no Caitlin Clark tomorrow, or for at least at this time, any timeline of the foreseeable future, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Appreciate the time as always, Coach.
All right. Thank you.
Wish you the best of luck. Stephanie White joining us on the program tomorrow night. And again, Alyssa Thomas, like I said, I mean, a 6'2", a point forward, basically. And I know that's you're operating it on the perimeter. It's not the same in any way, shape, or form. But you look at even, like a Halliburton. I mean, a Halliburton is a point guard, but the size in general in relation to the rest of the floor, that's what makes it so difficult, and that is certainly a challenge for certain. But that's the big news there with Caitlin Clark. Again, they have, I think it's 5 games between now and the 17th of August, and then they get a reprieve. So it'll be interesting to see, as she talked about, need practice days. We'll see how that all slots. Speaking of practice days, busy one today for the Colts. Stephen Holder will join us about 13 minutes from now, and it's kind of a MASH unit report from today. We'll get the latest on that. When we come back, we have tickets to give away, Dropkick Murphys, and as well for Three Dog Night. We will let Kylan select right now. Dropkick Murphys or Three Dog Night, Kylan. Which one do you want to go with first?
I vote Three Dog Night. Let's
All right,
get 'em.
Three Dog Night tickets to give away. This will be at the Great Indiana State Fair. It is on Friday. And we will do it in our typical fashion with a little get-to-know-your-listener on the other side. If you would like to go, Three Dog Night, and it's going to be, I believe it's this Friday at the Indiana State Fair. Opening night on the grand stage there at the fair. 239-1070 is the telephone number. Join the program next. There you go. 3 Dog Night. Indiana State Fair this Friday night. Tickets to give away. By the way, you just heard the Tigers and Phillies that you can hear on this radio station. Bryce Harper, I don't know if Rob Manfred's going to be there or not. But apparently he paid a visit to the clubhouse of the Philadelphia Phillies amidst conversation of Major League Baseball going to a salary cap, and Bryce Harper took exception. Cussed him out. I think he actually dropped the almighty cuss word on him a couple of times. Cussed him out in the clubhouse. Eventually, they allegedly made up. But then Rob Manfred apparently called him on the telephone, and Bryce Harper let it go to voicemail. He might not have his number. Like, if you're like me anymore, my phone now, and I downloaded some app to screen out, like, spam calls because I was getting 47 a day at one point. And I have 1,375 unpaid tolls in the state of Arkansas, and I keep getting that text. So I got something to weed all those out. So now my phone like automatically kicks any number that's not on my contact list to voicemail. And I don't get the voice. Like 6 weeks later, I get something randomly, some email that says, you have a voicemail from this number. Okay. So, maybe that's what happened for Bryce Harper. Maybe he's got the same. 3 Dog Night, Friday night. Let's go to Tony, who joins us on the program at 239-1070. Hi, Tony. How are you?
Hey, I'm just fine.
Now, Tony, you sound subdued. Everything going okay?
Yeah. Everything's kind of cool. Just a nice warm afternoon.
So I was just going to ask that, Tony. We're landlocked here inside the building. We're in the interior of our building, so I have not been able to look outside. Things still looking sunny outside?
Sunny and very warm and muggy.
Okay, how bad is it? Because, I was going to be out at Colts camp today and ended up in here because, for logistically speaking, to get Jonathan Taylor on, who we may replay coming up just a little bit. I thought Jonathan Taylor was really good. But I was worried about the heat. I was up in northern Indiana early this morning, and I saw what I thought was this huge cloud, and then somebody explained to me that what I was witnessing was, in fact, the corn sweat that then burns off. It's like Indiana Bay Area fog, but it's made by corn. So how muggy is it out right now, Tony?
I'd say it's on a scale of 1 to 10. It's probably about an 8. It's extremely muggy, and I got in my early morning swim.
Oh, really?
And I'm probably just going to chill out for the rest of the
Now, Tony, can we play a little get to know your listener, because that's intriguing by the early morning swim. Are you okay with this? We've done meetings on this segment of the show, and kids love it in particular. We've had a lot of success with it. Tony, if you don't mind me asking, how old a fellow are you?
Well, I'm 76.
76-year-old Tony. Okay, and by the way, Tony, not that 76 is old, because it's not in any way, shape, or form, but that is very impressive that you did your morning swim, right? I'm guessing at 76, that puts you in a graduating class of high school somewhere around 67. Is that right?
67, Southport High School.
Okay. Here's an odd question for you, Tony, and I mean this with all sincerity, because I find this fascinating, and this is one of those little nuances that I find fascinating, and everyone else is probably going to think, what in the world? But I'm curious of this real quick, Tony, on a serious level. At the time that you were a senior in high school and the escalation of the Vietnam War and the realities of the draft taking place, in particular up through, I think, 70 or 71, do you remember or can you recall just the tension or the stress level at that time of the confluence of the innocence of youth and then the instantaneous force into adulthood because of what was going on then and what it meant for you and your classmates?
Very definitely, because everybody watched the lottery drawings.
Yep.
I was fortunate enough, my number was 205, and it definitely made going to college an absolute decision, because that did at least give me some time,
right?
With my deferment. But anyway, yeah, it was a tough time for a couple of years there. I had a lot of friends that obviously were not as fortunate, that they either did end up in Vietnam or chose another route.
Yeah,
But,
no, I
yeah,
understand. I just remember when I was in high school, Tony, I had a teacher once, and a girl in my class was complaining about the pressures of having to get a certain grade to get into to get a scholarship to college or whatnot. And my teacher, Mr. Blomberg at the time, who was, a contemporary of yourself from an age standpoint or era, like basically shut the door and said, do you want to talk about pressure of high school and college? Like, let me tell you about what happened if I didn't get into college when I was your age. And he kind of spelled out what you just said. And I've just always had, Tony, as somebody who graduated from high school in 1991, the Gulf War started my senior year of high school. There was never even the remote possibility or thought, obviously, of a draft. And to then put myself in the position of what you guys must have gone through, guys and gals in your class, I think it is truly, even though we say that those from World War II were the greatest generation, I think yours is right there with it. And I've always just had the utmost respect for what that turmoil must have been like and the winds of change in this country from, say, 65 to 75. I think it's a decade that is almost unprecedented in terms of everything that took place. So for that, I tip my cap and I say thank you to you and to your classmates as well for going through that time period. And there were good times in that time period as well. Some of those perhaps accompanied by the soundtrack of Three Dog Night. So I hope you can reflect on those positive times when you were enjoying the show on Friday. Tony, we'll send you out there, all right?
Yeah, and I might mention one of my classmates was a friend of yours, good friend of yours, an acquaintance. Unfortunately, passed away. Robin Miller.
You know what? Robin should have been the first person I thought of with Southport because there's nobody that talked more about Southport in his time there. And Tony, I could go on till the cows come home about Robin and the loyalty that he had. The fact that guy, Robin Miller had a unique ability, Tony. For every person he was friends with, you were convinced that you were his best friend. And he had an unbelievable ability to connect people that would have had no other connection. But if you were a friend of Robin's, you were a friend of that person's. You know what I mean? So it truly is a privilege to be able to say that, yes, in fact, we have that common friend.
Yeah, we ran a lot together in high school. Robin got me into some trouble.
I can only imagine, right? Probably on the daily, right?
As you know, like I say, Robin, it was his mouth that got us into trouble. But because he was always like as they used to say, writing checks that the account wouldn't cash.
By the way, did he wear sweatsuits to school every day?
No, he didn't. He was the manager on our basketball team.
I knew that. I did. Listen, he was proud of that. I mean, honestly, he was darn proud of that, man. He was proud of all you guys, Tony. No question about it. One of the all-time greats.
I think at one time I started to tell you a story about me and George McGinnis when I was playing against him. George was a sophomore and at Washington, and I was tasked with guarding him. And I was 6'2" and 165 pounds.
Yeah.
And but it was all elbows and knees.
I was gonna say, you guarded his kneecaps very well in that game, right?
Yes, I did. And at one point, with 2 minutes to go in the half, the refs stopped the game, took both of us by the arm, and walked us over to the scorer's bench and told the coaches to either sit us down till halftime or he was throwing us both out. and Robin is over there egging the refs on to throw us out, which, I mean, it would have been a pawn for a queen.
Absolutely beautiful. And then, of course, who would have guessed that Robin would go on to become, basically best friends of George and all those ABA Pacers and just as much a staple within Central Indiana as McGinnis and, obviously Downing and, that whole group, Abner Nibbs, that whole group of that great 69 team for Indianapolis, Washington. All right, enjoy the show, Tony. Stephen Holder going to join us, other side, report from Colts camp. if you write down S. Holder, it's shoulder, and he's giving us the cold one. Is that right? I'm going to see if now, when you said it didn't go through, Kylan, you mean it was going? Is he weeding us out? Is it going straight to voicemail, like I mentioned?
It's not even connected, so I don't know if it's just the wrong number or I don't know, man. You know what? He probably blocked this number specifically so he doesn't have to talk to us.
You think that's it? That's entirely possible. Here's I'm giving you that. See if that's the number that you have for him. We'll check in with Stephen Holder in just a second. A couple of things that took place at Colts camp today. Number one, Jalen Jones was taken off the field with what appears to be a hamstring injury. We'll find out the latest on that. Shane Steichen had made comment to it. That might be him calling right now, Kylan, as a matter of fact. But then also, that was not the only injury. Michael Pittman left late in practice with a groin injury. There was also a bit of a scuffle between Jonathan Taylor, who we talked to earlier on the show, and Grover Stewart. That, I think, it didn't sound when we talked to Jonathan Taylor. He had some interesting things to say about it, including those that kind of stepped up to diffuse. We will replay that for you in just a little bit. But first, let's get to Stephen Holder, who joins us from, I'm assuming, no longer standing on the side of the field in Westfield, because, Stephen, my understanding is it is now getting significantly warm outside, correct?
It's a bit warm.
Remind you of Florida?
Could say that. Yeah, or hell. That's what I imagine.
Okay.
It's what I imagine hell feels like. I don't know. Not been there, thankfully.
I think
But, no,
I
it's
would
brutal.
think, though,
It's
here's the
brutal.
thing. I would think that hell is a dry heat, right?
Yeah, I mean, Arizona's a dry heat, but it still sucks, right? So, sure.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You know, I had a buddy from Phoenix one time, though. I said to him, how in the world do you live in 115-degree heat? And I'll never forget, he said, look, you and I both live in areas that can have extreme weather conditions, but none of them, for me, ever make it any slower to go out to get my mail. I mean, that's a good point. Like, you got to walk on ice.
Fair.
It's a good point, right?
I mean, you're probably walking pretty fast to get the mail when it's 115.
Yeah, don't do it barefoot. Do not do it barefoot. Okay, Stephen, let's get to this. From an injury standpoint, I mentioned Jalen Jones. I mentioned Michael Pittman Jr. What else happened today out at camp, and what is the latest in terms of anybody that may miss time?
Yeah, well, I'll just add for context on the Jalen Jones front. I mean, we all saw it happen. He was running down on the individual portion of practice. They do the one-on-one passing drills, and he was trailing the receiver. I forget who it was, and sort of in a sprint on a deep ball, and he just pulled up lame and just went down immediately and grabbed that hamstring. And it wasn't one of those where he just kind of like tweaked it and just walked off the field. He went down hard, and it looked, I don't want to characterize it because I have no idea, right? But it did not look like a routine thing. So I think there's concern there. Beyond that, I think the other one that's of note is Juju Brents missed practice today with a hamstring in his own. So, that raises questions even beyond Jalen Jones, because now you have a possible depth issue at that position. I don't know if Juju Brents' situation is serious. He practiced yesterday. He talked to reporters after practice. I saw him, talk to him. He seemed fine. And then today he wasn't out there. So I don't know what to make of that. But that was interesting and surprising, I guess. But if there's an issue there with him that is remotely long-term, that's a concern, because now you're down two guys out of maybe your top 5 corners. And that's not great at a position where injuries are high. They tend to be high. So anyway, I think that's the other one to mention.
Let's get then to battle number 1, which we're going to check on each and every day. Quarterback battle today. If this was one of those games they have up on the video board, Stephen, where it shows like section 3 and section 4 are, cheered on to see which dot's going to win, and they go back and forth, back and forth. Is that what this quarterback battle is, or is it too early to say if either one of them has a lead?
I would say they've been very even. I wouldn't call it back and forth. In fact, it's weird. When they've when they've been good, they've both had days, I think, at the same time. And then when they've had bad days, those days have come at the same time. So I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but because of that, from an optics perspective, it doesn't look like anyone's really blown away because they're kind of neck and neck. At least in my perspective, I tend to think, for me, that means that Anthony Richardson probably has an edge. I got to feel like Daniel Jones has to come in and I think win the job. That's the way I conceive this going, at least in my head. I don't know what the Colts feel. And I would say if that's the standard, then that has not happened so far.
Okay.
Not even close.
Steven, tell me if this makes sense. And you might have to kind of pause for a second after I say it to absorb it because it's going to sound weird. But I think I've simplified my thought on this by saying this. If Daniel Jones is the starter week 1, it's likely it's not because Daniel Jones won the job. It's because Anthony Richardson did not.
That's potentially true. Because look, I think right now, if Daniel Jones keeps performing at the level he's performing at right now, it's not anything special. Okay?
Is it with Richardson?
Being blunt. No, it isn't. But I would say with him, I think what you have is he's playing at an acceptable level. So is Daniel Jones, right? But nothing special. Anthony Richardson, I think, is performing at an acceptable level right now in practice. The difference, though, is he has the explosive ability both with his legs and his big arm. And that, I think, potentially, in my mind, that separates him a little bit from Daniel Jones, his version of ordinary. Does that make sense?
It does. I think here's the thing. I guess a better way to say it is this. Does Anthony Richardson, to you, has he shown Stephen Holder any more consistency with the easy throws? We know he can make the hard throws. It's the routine throws. Is he any better with his accuracy?
I would say yes. I do think so, yeah. And I like that. I like that he is more decisive, I think a little more decisive. One of the things he did last year and has done is maybe hold the ball a tick too long when that first read maybe isn't readily available. You got to make snap decisions. And so he has gotten rid of the ball, I think, on time. Today, I thought he was fantastic today in some spots. Now, he was spotty at the end of practice, but he had some really good throws today that were contested throws on the sideline, outside the numbers, not deep throws, but short and intermediate throws. Those are sometimes the hardest throws. The deep throws, those tend to be all about timing, right? Receiver wins, you give him a chance, he goes and gets the ball. They're beautiful throws, and we love the big plays and all that, right? But where you really make your money is making the tough contested throws. He's doing that, at least in practice right now, I think at a level that is greater than I've ever seen him do it. And so if he's answering that question, I think it was the biggest question. He also is not turning it over as much, which is a huge, I think, point to make, because last year I thought the turnovers were his biggest problem. If he's made strides, then he's a better player.
Player to this point in camp, Stephen Holder, ESPN.com, is our guest. The player in camp to this point who has most helped himself. Not named Bernard Ryman, by the way.
Oh, my goodness. He helped himself a lot. You know the guy that just keeps showing up, and I know if you're following the daily coverage, you've heard this name a lot, but I'll repeat it. Justin Wally, I am thoroughly impressed. The rookie cornerback from Minnesota, this guy, every day he makes a play. I'm not joking. Every day. And with what I just outlined with the injury situation at corner, it's only going to strengthen the notion that he's an opening day starter. Look, they'll have Kenny Moore at the nickel corner and outside in the defense, but generally in nickel corner. Shavarius Ward And then there's that third cornerback on the outside, the second outside cornerback. That's the position that's up for grabs. Jalen Jones was a starter there for 17 games last season. He got hurt today. We'll see how bad it is. But I think even without the injury, Justin Wally is ahead of him right now. And he has earned it. I'm telling you, the guy makes a play every day. Yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, yeah, he had a pass breakup against Tyler Warren, or it might have been Sunday. Their days run together. They're all hot. That's all I know. He had a pass breakup against Tyler Warren that was just a brilliant play. That guy, he has real stud potential. I think I'm exaggerating. He's been really good.
How big is he? Because, like Juju Brents I really like because he's big, right? But then I go back to like Ty Poole. We've seen guys that are smaller, but if they've got reaction time, it doesn't matter. How big is Whaley?
He's not big at all. He's like 5'10". And in fact, it was the most puzzling thing to me because Chris Ballard has made no bones about it. I mean, he likes long cornerbacks. You see the guys that he has drafted over the years. I mean, Juju Brents being a great example. It's the reason he wasn't even interested in claiming Kenny Moore off waivers when he was available, 8 years ago or whatever that was. And his personnel staff had to beg him to make the waiver claim. That turned out okay. But, Kenny Moore is a small guy. He's 5'9", and didn't have the dimensions that Chris Ballard looks for. So I saw that here with Justin Wally, and I was kind of surprised they would make the pick. But what they really like and what they thought would help him overcome his size is his competitiveness. He has an edge to him, man. I'm telling you. And at that position, you got to have an edge mentally and physically. He's tough and he is competitive. And there's a lot to like there. I really like the pick so far.
Steven, when you look at an NFL roster in general, over your experience of watching teams being built, the position where you can mask or hide a player that is not up to par is where? What is of the non-specialty position? So I'm not talking punter, kicker, long snapper, but of the everyday down positions, which one is the one where if you had to pick one guy that is like the least on your depth chart, you can get away with it at that spot and it kind of gets covered up?
So I think the one that historically has been true is linebacker. And they may be trying to do that here, frankly, because they haven't invested anything in that position. So maybe there's truth to that. Maybe they adhere to that philosophy in Indy. I guess depending on defense, sometimes, depending on what that player's asked to do, safety, or at least one of the safeties. If you're playing a safety that's, for example, out in the box, like the Colts used to do with Gus Bradley's position or Gus Bradley's defense, sometimes you can mask that with the strong safety. That free safety's got to be able to cover a lot of ground in a single high defense. So that would not be a choice. But certainly some safeties and some defenses, and I think linebackers. Those are the ones I'd say. The other one would be maybe interior offensive line. But with the emergence of these stud defensive tackles that we see today, that's gotten harder, and you can't hide them anymore. And then one other thing I'd add is that at linebacker, with the way some of these tight ends have emerged and the matchups that you get put in there, you can't hide them sometimes either. So, at some point, everybody's going to have to make a play.
Stephen Holder, our guest, ESPN.com is where you can read his work as he covers Colts camp and gets you set for the regular season, obviously, and all the way through the preseason. Stephen, what about a player so far in this camp that has most hurt themselves? And I don't mean from an injury standpoint, and I don't mean at the quarterback spot, but somebody that you look at and you just go, boy, opportunities there on a platter, and they have yet to reach out and grab it.
I still come back to A.D. Mitchell. Just the inconsistency for me. I don't know how you trust him. Now, he's had a good couple of days, I would say, yesterday and today. I thought he's bounced back, and he needed it because he was dropping damn near everything. for the first week of camp. And I don't know if there was something going on with him, if he was just trying too hard, and maybe there was, an issue there where he's just forcing things. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, but I saw a guy who just could not be counted on. And I think for him, this is a coaching staff that has bent over backwards to tell us we still love this guy and he's still a guy that we believe in. They've done that repeatedly. And my argument has been he hasn't earned that. But they keep telling us that, right? And so at some point you have to actually give some evidence that what your coaches are saying is true. And he had not done that through the first week of camp. We'll see if he can keep this going in the last couple of days, the bounce back that he's had. But that remains
because
to be
he had
seen.
a good
It's still
day.
early.
He had a good day today, correct?
Yeah, I'd say he did. Yes.
Now let me ask you about this guy. Each year I go all in on a guy, right? I go all in. Usually it's a guy I know nothing about. I just look at the roster and I go, I like that guy. Okay.
You like his name. You like the high school he went to, or whatever.
Yeah, of course, right? Landon Parker's got hair like Jeff Spicoli, and he's a rookie at the age of 25 out of Troy. I'm all in on Landon Parker. Have you heard of Landon Parker? He's a wide receiver.
Yeah. I'm a big expert on Landon Parker.
Is he still there?
Yeah.
Do we know if he's still there? He might have been released earlier today.
I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of, but I reserve the right to be wrong.
A year ago, my guy was Derek. I think his name was Derek Slifka, something like that.
I remember this.
Yeah.
We had many conversations about this
Yeah.
guy. Well, no, you had conversations about
That's
him,
right.
and I just nodded.
Derek Slifka, by the way, a little-known fun fact, future roommate of Landon Parker, just so you know, right? They're going to be sharing a two-bedroom somewhere in the UFL.
That sounds like a plan. You know what? And they'll live happily ever after.
I even went all in the USFL, now the UFL or whatever it's called. I went all in on the Birmingham Stallions, and now they're moving. Like I'm literally. Yesterday I had Jalen Jones on the show. He hurt his hamstring. I had Alec Pierce on the show. Gets a boo-boo blister. I'm a walking jinx, Stephen. As a matter of fact, you're not driving right now, are you?
I am, but you did get Bernard Raymond paid, so I'll give you that one.
Listen, look. You gotta get Bernard Ryman knew what he was saying, didn't he?
Oh yeah. He's no idiot. Very savvy. I love it.
That was
I love
savvy.
it when a plan comes together.
Should I get agent gets 7%? Should I get 3.5%? For those that are unfamiliar, Bernard Ryman on this radio show spoke out about how far away he was with the Colts on a contract agreement that went somewhat noteworthy from a national standpoint amongst football circles, and then people were like, what is Indianapolis doing? And then bada boom, he gets $100 million. 3.5% I should get, right?
I mean, you start there and then you negotiate from there, I'd say. But that's a good start.
I'll take a watch. Don't guys do running backs buy linemen watches? I'll take a watch.
I think that's fair. I would also add, just to clear, I do think just as much as you may have helped him, he might also have been helped by the gargantuan contracts that other offensive linemen have signed in the last few weeks. But, I mean, that's just me saying that.
No, you're right. I mean, there's no doubt about the fact, as we talked about, Stephen, kidding aside, the Colts kind of had to get it done because his tag, unless he got hurt, was only going to go up, right? His price.
Yeah. No, 100%. He's gotten better every year. That's the thing about him, which is great. It's what you want. But what if he goes out there and he shuts down all these stud defensive ends? Well, if you're his agents, you're like, buddy, that contract we talked about last year? Yeah, forget that. Right? That's exactly the conversation. So they were right to do it now. And they've done this with all their big offensive linemen. They did this with Quentin Nelson. They did it with Ryan Kelly multiple times. They did it with Smith, right? They signed all these guys going into the final year of their rookie deals, and that's how you do it. Don't screw around when you got a good thing. I think I look at it as team building. I look at it as problem solving, right? Your goal, your job is to go out there and figure things out, solve problems. Well, letting your left tackle, who you love, get to free agency, that is creating a problem. So this was a problem-solving move by the Colts to lock him up and now they're there.
Okay, Stephen, in conclusion, give me a problem when it comes to the Colts that you are looking for a riddle, or I should say a riddle for the Colts that you're looking for the answer here in the next couple days. We are looking for what storylines now through camp?
I guess I'd say consistency at wide receiver. These guys are too good, I think, to be up and down the way they have been. Pittman and Downs been better the last couple of days, so I'm happy about that.
Okay, Pittman injury, groin injury today, you say not significant, at least, right?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay. Anyway, as you were on the receiver.
Right. So anyway, I just think way too uneven for the first week of camp, and these guys are too good for that. And they got to help the quarterback. So let's just see if they can continue that, what they've done the last couple of days, and make what the first week was or let me rephrase that. Make the first week an aberration. Let's put it that way. The other thing, I guess, if you want a bonus one, look, next week, or in fact, a week from today, they're in Baltimore. Let's see how they look against Lamar Jackson, and let's see what kind of stress he puts on them, and that'll tell us a lot about this defense. So that's an upcoming riddle, that we made an answer to.
By the way, in terms of consistency at receiver, let me introduce you to Landon Parker.
I mean, here you are with an answer.
6'2", 211.
The riddle.
I'm telling you. Looks like
I
Spicoli.
present the riddle. You got the answer.
Looks like Spicoli plays like Jefferson. That's all I got to say. All right, Stephen Holder, appreciate it. We will talk to you soon. All right, stay cool at camp.
All right, guys.
Oh, Stephen, you know what? Hold on. I got one other one for you. Sorry, I totally forgot this. Are you still there?
Yeah, I am.
Listen, I'm going to put you on the spot here, and I apologize for that, but I totally –
You never do that.
I know.
You never do that.
We have mentioned before on the program, your uncle-in-law is Hall of Famer Andre Dawson. I think we've mentioned that on the show. I hope you don't mind me outing that your wife spent a lot of time in childhood with Andre Dawson, her uncle. I'm just strictly curious whether or not just in yesterday or whatever it may be, if she ever made mention of the fact – or if she ever had any encounter with Ryne Sandberg. Since we lost Ryne Sandberg yesterday, I thought maybe there might have been a story that she had shared with you that you could share.
No, she knew the family, in fact, and I, if I recall correctly, may have actually babysat his kids. So I mean, when she was like 12,
right?
But that's the first thing I thought about when I saw the news. So. Yeah, that whole Cubs crew back in the day, from everything I was told, I mean, I wasn't there, but from everything I was told, I mean, that was a really close-knit group, as you can imagine, right? And they're all the families are still close and all that. So, yeah, I haven't talked to Andre since that news or heard from him, but I imagine he'll be there for the services and that kind of thing. That group's still pretty close. So that's definitely struck a chord with me when I saw it for that reason. Yep.
Great player, no question. Appreciate it, Stephen, as always. Ryne Sandberg, whose daughter, by the way, lived in Central Indiana. And I think Ryne Sandberg spent a lot of time here. Might have even lived here briefly, but truly, truly a class gentleman. All right, there was a scuffle at the Colts camp. One of the guys that after he got in a fight, he came on with us. And we'll let you hear a little of that next. To be out at Everwise Amphitheater at the lawn at White River. Awesome facility. We will give tickets away coming up just a couple of minutes. But first, I want to replay for you. We don't normally do that, but I thought there was some really good stuff in here, and we had them right off the top of the show, essentially. Jonathan Taylor of the Colts joined us. And, of course, the first question was simply the mindset for a guy now entering year number 6 in camp.
It's great to actually be able to come out here and get better, especially with athletes. We're so schedule and so regimented in our schedule that when you have a timeline and let's say you had something to take care of in the off season to get healthy, and then at that point in time you're not ready because we know the body is weird and it acts different, so you get a little frustrated because you put so much work in and yet still you weren't able to be healthy to be on the field. So finally being able to have another camp where you can just come out, focus on your craft, I think it's just that much better in order to build that chemistry with the guys up front, but then also just preparing for the season to have everything in the playbook under your belt and all the little nuances that we might have picked up throughout the offseason, having that locked down heading into the season.
Over the course of your career, you have obviously taken handoffs from myriad of quarterbacks. As a running back, how important is it to have stability at the quarterback position in terms of just the overall, I guess, chemistry, timing, all of it?
Well, number one, especially with ball handling, when you just continuously are getting handoffs from the same quarterback, you kind of know their steps. On outside zone, are they, a longer step guy? Are they a shorter step guy? You kind of know when they're reversed. And now, how tight they're going to be because, everybody's different, especially when you have quarterbacks who are taller and, have longer legs than others. So, when you're able to get those repetitive reps from just one quarterback, it's much easier and you get much more comfortable knowing, like, hey, when they call the scheme, okay, hey, I have to really get to my spot because I know the quarterback's going to be there fast. Or, hey, I got a little bit of time. Quarterback may have a little bit shorter legs, so I got a little bit of time to get there.
Are Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, in terms of style or in terms of just overall nuances within them, is this the closest you've seen quarterback 1 to 2 in terms of the starter or backup that you have had in your offense since you've been here?
They are very similar, and I don't think people realize, Daniel was actually really athletic. I don't know if they realize, he ran 21, almost 22 miles an hour before. So really being able to have those similar schemes, because I know in the past we've kind of had two distinct different quarterbacks with different styles. So if, one was up one week, kind of playbook would be different than the other, but they're actually very similar. So I think that's actually gives us an edge, especially, if we have to rely on both of those guys. It doesn't shift the game plan much either. Just like in the past, like I said, two distinct style quarterbacks, you kind of have to switch up kind of what you guys are going to run.
It is true. Now, you mentioned Daniel Jones, 22 miles an hour. That's your speed, right? I mean, do you guys – are you competitive about this? Because that's Jonathan Taylor's speed, is it not?
That is. That's why I'm like, I don't think people realize how athletic he actually is. I know people probably think he's athletic, but I want them to realize, no, actually, this dude's, pretty freaking athletic. He can roll.
How much have you gotten a chance to, I know you obviously know Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, our guest. How much have you gotten a chance to work with and know away from field Daniel Jones?
I've been able to do a lot, and I just think that it's going to take some time, to continue to build. Like you mentioned, each year it seems like it's been, a different guy back there. So he's another face that I have to not even figure out, just get reps to learn, because every guy has their own talent and every guy is different. So it's just going to continue. We're only in the second week of camp, so we're going to continue to build that relationship. We're going to continue to build those reps together so that when Sunday comes around, whoever's back there, that we're able to hit on all cylinders.
This is the most, and Jonathan Taylor, I've had you on the show before. This to me feels like the most energetic and optimistic Jonathan Taylor I've heard in a while. Am I reading too much into that?
I like to think that I'm always like this, but I'm glad that you feel as though that I'm bringing a lot of energy to the show, which is amazing. Hopefully the ratings are up big time.
Yeah, we need all the help we can get in that regard, Jonathan, so thank you. Do you want to stick around till 3? We can use you till 3. Do you want to stick around? Why not?
Listen, you might have to talk to Coach Steichen. We got meetings.
Now, I want to know this. I want to know if in one of those meetings you've got to play Kumbaya, because let me read you what James Boyd, who does our morning show, had posted on the X-Post Twitter earlier just a little bit ago. Colts defensive tackle Grover Stewart just threw Jonathan Taylor to the ground after Taylor made a short catch. JT took exception and shoved Grove in the chest. Left guard Quentin Nelson came over and had some words for Grover Stewart as well. Then he says, second day of pads has been physical. All right, your recollection of it.
Definitely Grove got into the moment. Game time. He's flying around. He let me know. He said, listen, man, I thought it was game time. Rightfully so. That's the type of edge that we need on the field. I'm sure you guys have seen the film of Grover bullying guys on the offensive line. So, like you mentioned, second day of pads. He probably got into that mode a little bit too much. But that's what we need. That's the type of edge that we need in order to go where we want to go this year.
Somebody asked me this question, Jonathan Taylor, so I'll ask it to you. I think it's a good one. And that is, if there are moments where someone is lagging, where somebody is just going through the motions as opposed to the intensity that is necessary, who is the player in your locker room on your roster that is the one that just automatically is the leader that will not be afraid to get in a guy's grill and say, you got to be a professional here, let's pick it up? That guy for this roster is who?
Oh, definitely Quentin Nelson is always, especially with the guys on the offensive line. You guys know the trajectory that Quentin Nelson is on, not only on the field, but off of the field as well. And he's a guy who does everything the right way. He's a true pro's pro. And if guys seem to be not holding up to the standard here in the building, he's definitely one to say, listen, that's not the standard. And we're always fully behind Q, because at the end of the day, you want someone who you know day in and day out is giving everything he has to this organization, and that's someone you want to be like. You want to be like Quentin Nelson. You want to be like, on the defensive side, you want to be like a DeForest Buckner. So that's definitely having those two guys as model professionals. That's what a lot of guys are striving to be.
He strikes me, Quentin Nelson, as a guy that doesn't speak a lot. So is he one of those that when he does, you know it means business, or are we just kind of hidden from the real gregarious nature of Quentin Nelson?
No, Quentin definitely won't say a whole lot, but like you mentioned, when he speaks, powerful.
Jonathan Taylor, our guest. All right, let's get to this before we let you get back into meetings, Jonathan. In terms of you personally, where you are right now in terms of just kind of getting the feel again for the speed of the season, and I guess, if you will, what things do you still feel like you need to work on or you need to perfect before we get into week one?
Definitely being efficient. There's never a time where, even if things break down with the blocking scheme up front, can you get back to the line of scrimmage? Can you turn a no gain or a negative gain into a 1-2 yard gain? Because at the end of the day, continuing to move the sticks forward, continuing to be able to move the chains is something that a great running back is able to do. That helps the offense. That helps the offense, especially when you get towards third down. So it's not 3rd and 11, 3rd and 10. Now, at the worst, you may be working with 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 6. So I will say being able to work on that is definitely something that I still want to make sure that I'm pushing for the start of this season.
By the way, November 15th, Wisconsin at Indiana. Kurt Cignetti, are they going to do it again? Is Indiana going to stun Wisconsin here?
No, not at all, not at all. Listen, Wisconsin, well, we had to kind of get our feet underneath us. That's all. That's nice and cool. But now it's time for Wisconsin to get back to Wisconsin football, and I'm really looking forward to those guys taking that next step forward this year.
Jonathan, it is always a pleasure, man. I appreciate the optimism, the energy, the good vibes, the sunshine, all of it. And obviously, we don't need any more heat out at Colts camp. But mind your P's and Q's with those guys that are flying around making plays. But certainly look forward to having you back on the program, and I appreciate the time today. We'll let you get back into your position meetings here.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate you.
Jonathan Taylor from earlier today on this program. We had told you Dropkick Murphys. We have tickets to give away. That is going to be, and listen, the lawn and the Everwise Amphitheater, our friends at Live Nation putting that show on, but that facility is awesome. And in particular, just on a summer night, even if whether you're in the lawn or underneath the overhang, awesome facility, super convenient, right there downtown. We have tickets for it for their show. I've got Kylan. Do you have the date of that show? I'd have to look it up.
Yeah,
real quick.
It's next Tuesday, August 5th.
August the 5th, Tuesday night, going to be a perfect night. We will give away those tickets at 239-1070, betterly known as 239-1070 next. 239-1070 is the telephone number. We're going to go roulette style, and I'll go line 2.
Line 2, that leaves us Jeff.
Jeff, you are on the program. How are you, Jeff?
Hello. Just fine.
Jeff, you sound like a nice fella. Are you a native to Indianapolis, Jeff?
Yep. Well, I was born in Denver, but came here when Dad got transferred to a different Air Force base, and I've been here for 71 and a half years.
I love it. All right, so, and you were born where again?
Denver, at the Air Force base out in Denver.
Denver, gotcha. Okay. My girlfriend Shannon's from Denver, as a matter of fact. Not born in Denver, but from Denver. Do you ever go back to Denver, Jeff?
Yeah, go out and see Tedeschi trucks at Red Rocks every year.
Man, Red Rocks is the best, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's amazing.
Of course, you got the NHRA strip right behind it. You got Red Rocks. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but when you leave Red Rocks, when you walk up the walkway out of Red Rocks, that's the amphitheater in Denver, Colorado. It was built actually as part of the New Deal after the war. Or actually after the Depression, before the war. When you walk up out of Red Rocks, in the rocks there's actually embedded. They have fossils, dinosaur fossils. Have you ever noticed that?
Yep. Been to around the gift shop area and stuff down below it.
Yep.
And younger people than me go hiking up there, but that's not going to happen.
When Shannon was in high school, she actually climbed the 3 big rocks, which is highly illegal. And
oh, yes, it is.
Yeah, should probably never do that again, nor mention it on live radio. All right, Jeff, Dropkick Murphys, we'll get you the tickets. You will love it, I promise. It'll be like being at a night at Red Rocks. Perfect night downtown Indy, and I appreciate you listening to the show and calling in. Kyla will get your information. Before she does that, Paul has been waiting patiently to talk Colts, so we will bring him in. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Hey, Paul. Hey, glad to meet you, man.
Paulie, what's up, buddy?
Hey, just hope the Colts this year, left tackle and do everything better with Anthony Richardson than last year. And it sounds like from what everybody was saying, I hope that keeps pulled out so they can keep people from getting him and when everybody gets in the trenches. And I'm glad, hopefully the Fever, I'm hoping they're doing great. Then tomorrow I'll get out and see them and hope you're doing good. I'll have to keep in touch. I'll get, because you and J&B, thank you for those Bob Dylan tickets. I get up and give you guys some goodies. I'll have to get up and do that.
Paulie, I told you, Mark Baker, our buddy Mark Baker wants to take you out to lunch, and I left you a voicemail. We got to go out to lunch with. Now I can't do it from 12 to 3, but we got to get together, Paulie, and go out with Mark Baker.
Yeah, we could. We'll get together one of these. Get out there and do something.
Paulie, did you get a TV yet? Do we still need to get you a TV?
No, I'll get one. I'm trying to move where I'm at. So I'm up by 10th and Girls School, and I might get down in Rod Ripple on can't even talk, 46th Street. I know a guy that lives down there in at the Knoll Apartments. I got to call a guy on down on Meridian. But anyway, find out about those or a carriage house. So I'm going to get that together because I'm kind of far from Broad Ripple now.
All right. Well, hey, Paulie, here's the thing. So you got to get a hold of me. You have my number, obviously, or I will call you. We're going to go out to lunch with Mark, then we'll get your TV, and we'll get you squared away. But I'm going to mark it down now. Paulie says Anthony Richardson starter week 1, right?
Right.
All right.
But, yeah. Send me your number out and let me know if I get a hold of this one girl, if you think of going out, if you're thinking of going to see, because I tell you if you're thinking of going to see McCartney or anything.
I'm going to see McCartney in Denver, Paul, actually. I'm going October 11th, and I appreciate the call, Paulie. Paulie's my man, Paul Ferrer. Going to see McCartney October 11th in Denver, Colorado. J&B just got here and is wearing the most fabulous shirt of all time. I think I told you know my story about when I wore a Bucko Bruce shirt and several people came up to me. It was some sort of subtle meeting 15 years ago in the airport, but nonetheless – big show lined up?
Yeah, big. Hey, by the way, my daughter's going to Des Moines to see Paul McCartney.
Is she really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
2 tickets to Des Moines, I believe, that Tuesday. She had 3 dates she could go during the Center Grove fall break, and that was the first one on
That's
Tuesday.
Awesome.
So,
Des Moines, as I call it.
So
That's
yeah,
actually Des Moines, kind of a cool little downtown. to be
Des
honest with you.
Moines. It's kind of weird that he's going to Des Moines.
It kind of is,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Because he's not playing here, right?
No, Columbus, Des Moines, Minneapolis, Denver's where you got the tickets. So that is all weird. So how hot was it up there today? Did you have fun?
I actually was not there today because we ended up. Jonathan Taylor was calling in, so the morning show guys are going to have Tyler Warren on tomorrow.
Yeah.
We had Taylor on today, and so as a result, logistically speaking, I was actually in here. But my understanding, you just came in from outside. How bad is it? How bad is it out?
No,
How
it's
hot?
it's hot out. It's great. I mowed a little bit in it. Great.
That's
I
cool.
love it.
You like it?
shirtless mow, man. Love a good, sweet shirtless mow. I got to be up there Thursday, though. It's going to be much cooler, I think.
It's supposed to rain tonight or tomorrow and cool things off, right?
Hey, let's guess who I'm going to get. Who do you think? Who am I going to get on the show Thursday?
That's a good Zaire Franklin.
If it were the Fever, I wouldn't get a call back. But who I'm going to get from the Colts?
No, hold on. I'm gonna let me name
James,
an
you
entity.
get a call back from the Fever? No.
Let me name an entity, and you tell me if you get a call back. You ready? Fever,
never.
Pacers.
Only if I call Chad Buchanan himself or Ryan Carr.
Okay.
Yeah.
IndyCar.
Only if I call at the right time for them to pick up the phone.
NFL.
The Colts. I will say
I'm
this.
sorry, Colts?
Yeah, the Colts absolutely slay it.
NASCAR.
Only Joey Logano calls in.
Okay.
So is it just me? Is that what happens? Is it me? They just don't want to come on with me?
Well, Matt Painter.
Matt Painter, I can call him.
Mike Woodson.
Now, I would say this. I don't think Purdue, you guys struggle with Purdue other than me with Painter, right? Is that true? Is Purdue tough basketball-wise?
No, I've had pretty good luck with. I've always had good luck with Purdue. Well,
that's the key. That is the key. You know this, too. The key is to just hopefully have.
Has anybody talked to the new Indiana basketball coach?
No,
Anybody?
no one.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get Mendoza on. I've been trying to do that for 2 weeks. I'm kind of waiting on that deal.
There are
I'm
people,
telling you,
there are
here's
people who think
what
he's going to be a
happens,
top
man.
10 pick.
We all get really high and mighty, don't we? We all get high and mighty, and hey, we've got a lot of stuff going on. And then when crap hits the fan and we're not very good,
right?
Then
we're trying to sell
don't
tickets.
call
right?
me.
What is on the big show today, John?
The big show today, we got Greg, who is back from Iceland, finally. So we'll talk. It's weird, right? Because high school basically gets back into action this week. So we're not too far off.
It feels
from
like the end of summer and
season.
it's July still.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
but
crazy.
Joey Logano did call. Felix did not.
I saw that.
Felix was busy. And then I was told by Felix's people that maybe if I'd give them more time. Felix should run to the payphone to answer it if one of our shows calls him.
Felix Rosenquist you're talking about.
And I
right?
like him a great deal. And then you should get on a step stool and reach up and grab the phone and talk.
And he's from Sweden, so it doesn't
love
matter
him.
if it's 2 o'clock in
I
the morning.
love
It's
him.
still
I do
light
love
outside.
Him, though. I love him.
I do too.
But dang, you got to have better people around you.
All right, John's up next with his Bucko Bruce shirt. We'll be back with you at noon tomorrow. Thanks for listening to Query & Company.